Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Select Board meeting for April 8th, 2025. We're going to start at 6:45 here and go into executive session until 7 p.m. And do I have a motion to do that?
I move to enter executive session pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Reason 2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel. The Town Administrator, Ryan McLean, and reconvene in open session at 7 p.m. in the Clark Room.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Call for
do we need a roll call vote?
for
Okay.
Executive session.
Okay, sure.
Arnold, aye.
Reed, aye.
Snell, aye.
Triol, aye.
And David Modell is absent. But we were going to call him.
I have
All right.
his comment.
Great. All right, so we are back from executive session, but I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Carlisle Select Board for April 8th, 2025. We have a quorum of all members present, and we will start tonight, as always, with community input for a brief period of time. We will then go to the police and fire station renovation projects, annual town election and town meeting discussion, warrants and minutes, liaison reports, and community input. So for the opening, we have a few minutes for community input. If there's anyone who'd like to raise a topic or speak to ask a question, I typically would allow 1 to 2 minutes per speaker. If you would, just introduce yourself and state where your address, and you can address your questions or comments to me. Is there anyone in the room who wants to make a comment? Yes? Okay. And I just want to make sure everyone can hear you, and if not, I'm going to have you come up. Well, we have a microphone here that's kind of on the table, so if you want to just... there you go. All right. Perfect. So please introduce yourself, and again, please limit your comment to 1 to 2 minutes. Please.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Sarah Kylie Schaff, and I live at 37 Evergreen Lane. And I came last week, and I'm just coming this week again to talk about the Complete the Streets grant and give you an update on the signatories for the petition in support of the Westford sidewalk construction proposals 1 and 2. Proposal 1, just to remind everyone, is from Acton Street to Curve along Westford Street. It's 675 feet. And was estimated to cost about $40,000 back in 2018. So the signatories for that project are up to 164. And I would just say that they are not immediate abutters, although many of them are along Westford Street, Acton Street, Curve, but there's Hutchins, folks down Monroe Hill, but there's also folks in the center of town, Bedford Street off of Lowell Street. So I brought a copy of the list. I'm happy to email it to the board. That indicates sort of widespread town support for this first proposal. And then the second project, Westford Construction Project 2, has 128 signatories. I would say there's 8 of the 15 or so abutters have also signed on just in support of that, and that is the sidewalk construction that would allow us to sort of finish a network gap that I see that has been outlined in our master plan, that we wanted to have a half-a-mile sidewalks out from the center of town in all directions, and it's been completed with the first round of this funding on Lowell, Bedford, and East Street, and Concord already has that half-mile plus. So this Westford remains the only street out of the roundabout that I understand has been on citizens' minds for the last 30-plus years. So I would I'm just here to support both of those and give you the update on the numbers of signatures for both of those projects. And then also to say that I reviewed the Tier 3 projects. There's 21 other projects that the Safety Board is reviewing in their diligence that I understand will be presenting to you next week, their recommendations for which projects have the, that they would think is the most important. I would also just say that in my looking at the specific criteria, I think that these projects fulfill the network gap, which is one of the criteria, pedestrian bicycle access, which is a criteria. It improves safety or accessibility to a school and is located within 1 mile of a school. That would be applicable to only the Westford 2 proposal, which is, again, fire station to Monroe Hill And as I mentioned last week, that project was estimated at $535,000 in 2018, so it's likely much over budget for this particular grant. But in talking with residents, I think the support was, can we go as far as we can with this? So they were even hoping and brainstorming that we could go fire station to Tal or Toll, so folks could then go safely through the woods and then cross at the crosswalk that exists that was privately funded with the development from Hanover to Monroe Hill. And then the last thing that I saw in the criteria that is relevant to both of these projects is whether the development or the application included an opportunity for public engagement. I mean, I guess all of them do, but I think these demonstrate that there's been widespread support throughout the community for both of these. And
Thank
I
you.
will leave it there and leave you with some documents that you can share.
Great, we'll enter those in. Thanks,
Thank you
Sarah,
very
for
much.
your comment. Is there anyone else in the public here who wants to make a comment or has a question?
Just making sure I have the right agenda.
Seeing none, I'll look online. Is there anyone online who would like to make a comment or has a question?
Hi, this is John Labry. I have one quick comment.
Sure, John.
So I submitted my comments in writing.
Yep.
I don't quite know how
They
that
were
works.
submitted into.
I don't want to read them over again. And I would only add to that when we get to that section, one thing you could ask the designers is if they could take a cut at the design with my suggestion, omitting the two large vehicles that I've taken exception to, and see what that looks like.
Well,
That's it.
One thing I may do tonight is open this up for public comment during this, because we have these professionals here, and it's good to have questions that the board doesn't necessarily think of that have the public think of. So with no further ado, I will invite our construction managers to come forward, and if you want with tech.
Are we doing police
We're
first?
doing police.
Oh, we're doing,
Police, fire, and town meeting.
yeah, well, they're the same,
Yeah, they're the same
isn't it the same people?
Yep.
For the whole thing, so,
Well, our building.
same OPM.
Our building.
The architects are different. Okay. Well, we're going to start, so with the police and fire renovation project. So the police station renovation budget and warrant article. So whichever group is here to discuss it, Suzanne, I think you,
Yeah, this was just, we
Come forward.
yeah, please do, and introduce, yep,
We're
yep.
doing police station.
We'll do police station first. I'm sorry, that was very confusing. I will.
well, this will be pretty brief, because we did talk about it, and we met as a committee and decided, we talked about where we were with the budget, and, which is obviously over the budget, and talked about the alternates, and which we felt were high priorities with the chief. And we have come to the decision that we would like to recommend alternates 1, 2, and 3. 1 is the interior fit out of the existing space that would not otherwise have been addressed. This way we feel like there'll be parity between all the areas of the building, and not only that, it's, if you're going to do it while.
That's the one where you're painting or
Yeah, painting and new
the other
carpet.
areas, and
Yeah.
new carpet, okay.
And that's 11,360. And then there were two others were the heating at the Sallyport and heating at the storage area of the garage, which helps preserve certain types of evidence. And they were not big numbers. Alternate 2 is 4,000, alternate 3 is 96.99. So, but what we did decide was that alternate 4 and 5, which were more expensive, which was some built-in casework on the second floor, it was alternate 4, and then windows at the second floor office. The chief and the committee discussed that, that the project can live without it, considering that we are already over where we thought where we'd hoped to be. So what we talked about, and we talked about the contingency, and somewhere in that 10 to 15% in a renovated occupied building is a good target. But what we thought was, what we'd recommend to you is the base bid of $3.383 million, add those 3 alternates, which is $25,000, and that total is.
Can I just stop you for a second? Ryan, can you possibly bring that up on the screen so we can see it?
The renovation project.
Yeah, the
It's
renovation.
page 4 of whatever tonight's thing is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I tried to add on the fly what she's talking about in column E.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I did it by hand. And,
Could you make it a little larger, please, Sarah? I feel like I should just have a recording. Thank you.
Okay.
so what we would do is add basically to what we're going to call the base bid, the 3.383, the 11,360. And we would also add as part of the contract with the low bidder, the 4 alternates 2 and 3, so 4 and 9, that's 13,000. But what we would do is, we're trying to minimize all the increases to what we're asking for, is take that 13,000 out of the contingency, because the contingency is 451,000, which is a pretty substantial amount. I know it's an occupied building, but we're thinking that there's a lot in mechanical and things that, that there could be some unsuitables underground, some other things, but we're hoping that, that a good deal of the contingency, with the help of our esteemed construction managers, will be returned to the town. So what we would have to do is basically ask for, it's a $513,000 add. Does that make sense?
513,
Over what we asked for last year.
okay. A half million,
$500,000.
$500,000. That's
And-
13,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it
And
it
you've
can be
lowered the-
500.
And the contingency goes down to what, like 435 or something?
Yeah, 438, 195.
But didn't we,
38.
I don't understand that. I thought last year we were at 3.5 mil,
3.55.
and now you're going to 4.163, right? How is that 500? It's more like 660.
Did you take the rebates out of that? Did you take stuff out of the contingency?
So there was a lot of discussion about this,
Oh,
that the contingency should be based off the construction total,
oh, okay.
not the rebate total.
All right,
I did it the other way last time,
okay,
and everyone told me to do it this way this time.
all right.
But still, it's still 600, almost $700,000 more.
That would be 600.
It's 600.
Well, yeah.
The-
Okay.
The
I
bid-
had the
Okay.
contingency as less, but, I mean, we can ask for that amount, and that's what gets bonded, but in terms of, at the end of the project, hopefully, we'll return
Mhm.
a good chunk of that contingency, whatever that contingency is, but.
I'm a little
Brian,
confused about contingency because Neil, maybe you guys can help us, but Neil put a number in a memo that was like 350,000. He said that was the sweet spot.
375 to 450 is, I believe, what.
Well, that's the
he-
latest, maybe he
That's
got
the
religion
latest that
later,
I've
but
seen
he,
from him.
But that's lower than what's in here.
well, wait a minute, like 2 weeks ago, he put a note out and it was like 300 to 350, I can dig it out, but that's what he said.
Mhm.
And then you guys or somebody said, gee, no, 12% is a better, like, forget about the dollars, like, you need a percentage. Okay, so that's this. And now he's kind of backing that up. So why did he come in lower, I guess? That's kind of my question.
I'm not sure.
I mean, it's not a commitment. I'm interested
Yeah.
in how he thought it would be lower and now he's not wanting. And you guys have the experience, right? So
Mhm.
if 12% is the guideline, then,
Yeah,
it's there for a
yeah.
reason, right? That's what
Yeah,
you.
it really is.
So, I mean, I don't quite agree, like, we shouldn't bank on getting the money back.
Okay.
The fact is, this thing was at 3.2 million a year ago, and now it's $1 million more. I mean, that's the facts, right? So, we need to, like, I think we need to be pretty, honest
just the
with the
win.
voters about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd rather ask for enough to finish the job than to,
We'll come back again.
A,
Yeah.
have to come back again, or, I mean, you want to have a building that's going to last you now for 25 to 50 years, and I hate to nickel and dime, we nickeled and dimed ourselves on these buildings to begin with, and that's kind of why we're here
Right.
to begin with, so and we're still frankly squashed into that building. It's still not the right building, but
Right.
I hate to just kind of leave it, like a duck with a broken wing. So I think you're better off asking for those three
Okay.
alternates
Uh-huh.
and the full 12%.
Okay.
And if there's money left over at the end, there's money left over. But, let's not cut it so fine that you have to get rid of the alternates if you think they're that important, and I think they're important.
Okay. Well, we were just trying to figure out ways to make it more palatable, but.
I
but we
understand, but I
wanted-
think,
Want it to be,
By cutting
but
the
it's,
contingency.
and still be realistic, but we're happy, I'm sure we'd be happy, oh, we can't vote on it, but if we ask for the full amount, it's fine, it's not like anyone would object.
So what is the bottom line? Is it up there now, or we need to adjust that with the alternates that you're recommending be included?
so, yeah.
Is the bid with alternates all 5 of them, or it's,
No, the
No,
last
it's just
column.
bid with
three
the
that they
alternates.
recommend.
That includes the 3.
the bid with alternates?
Yes.
The three
And-
alternates.
And the 454,984 is the full 12% of the 33,000,004?
E13, yeah. right.
Or is it a full,
Let's just
or
walk
the?
through.
Yeah, no, that seems right, yeah.
You really should do it on the my experience is you do it on the construction. You certainly wouldn't do a contingency on
On OPM
on
and
the
stuff.
OPM
Right.
and the fees and furnishings.
I would be happy to. If everyone wants that number, I can throw that up there.
Well, what's
Well, what is
what's
it?
normally done when you take that 12% contingency? Are you doing it based on the construction fee?
Yes.
Yeah, not the other items up there.
No, but in your construction fee is a percentage of the bill,
We
right?
usually do have some contingency in for soft costs as well, so I think that like being more on the conservative side, closer to 15%, honestly might be based on the, might be a little better. I ran some numbers earlier, I was thinking about, usually we wouldn't fund things like utility back charges. There's a lot of miscellaneous expenses, legal fees, testing.
They're not in your,
They're not in, that wouldn't come out of contingency, and it's not up there,
it's
so.
not up
I
there,
would-
so, insurance, all that other
I
stuff?
would say, $100,000-ish for miscellaneous expenses.
So,
Good.
well, like builder's insurance and all, risk and all that, that's not in either,
That,
right?
we don't need to worry about that.
We
That's-
don't,
No,
okay. And-
that's in the construction number.
Okay.
Okay, so let's start again from the top, because, all right, the construction cost is 33,000,004, that including contingencies.
No, 3,
Well-
oh, you mean if you take out the other?
Yeah, it's
I-
Three
what do
million
you-
the first line, number
The
8.
first line, right? Do we all agree on that?
Is the construction
Okay.
bid without any contingency?
How can you build something without OPM and architect? I don't know why
Well,
you
okay,
disaggregate.
construction, I'm trying to get to the contingency,
I have no idea.
David. David, I'm
Yes.
trying to get to contingency, okay?
No, but you just heard from the guy, you need to include all the things.
No.
You do, the architects may overrun, he may overrun. No,
see.
I disagree with what you said.
Oh,
I just disagree.
is that what you said? I just
No, I
wanted to
think
see
it's,
what
I
you
think
said.
it's,
You
to be
weren't talking about-
conservative, it would be safe to have some contingency on the soft cost, because,
Okay.
I mean, let's just, the markets could be a little volatile.
Well, of
Let's
course,
say
right now,
something
for sure.
unforeseen thing-
What do
something
you mean it could
happens,
be?
that we don't know about, we have, and I
Okay.
don't expect, usually our fees are,
That's the big
are
deal.
good, architects are good, but who knows? You know
So
what I
are
mean?
we talking then, are we talking about 15% of the 30,791,000?
Well,
Is that what the recommend?
if you added, I don't know, did you change the math in 25E just now, Ryan? What did you do there?
I changed it to be based off of construction costs,
But-
not.
Okay, but our OPM is recommending not doing that, so if you go back to,
I'm confused. Did you say you wanted 15% of the construction cost, or 15% as the contingency of the entire cost of the project?
No, if we're doing the entire cost, then closer to 10 to 12%.
See,
Okay.
okay, so,
Right.
All right, so that's why
so
we
let's
need to get
do-
this straight.
So go back to the 12%
So 12%
of
of
the total, of the 3,7 whatever,
3,791.
like you had before.
but okay, but the
We have-
PSBRC, column E,
13%.
Suzanne, that includes the 3 add-ons, the three
Yeah.
extras?
3.4 million includes the
Oh,
three alternates.
Okay, and the reason and then that's why it's lower than the bid with alternates to the left of it?
Yeah, because that has the other one,
Okay,
right.
all right.
Yes. So that's what you'll sign
So
with.
we'd be taking 12% of,
3791.
yes,
Yeah, but if you want to run a comparison,
and that's what
do
454 is?
for Kate's sake, do 15%, just over in the right, just do a 15% times the 3.4. No, times that one, just to check it. Compare it.
60.
Okay, so that's higher.
It is higher.
And then do one more check, which would be, I forget your first name, sir.
Scott.
Scott, if we had a lump sum 100,000 of the all-in other stuff, what would the percent contingency be? Is that still 12 with the 100 added in, or I don't know how that?
I'm coming up with like a total of like 423.
But how you get there?
No, we don't want, no, we
No,
need to
just
answer to his
contingency.
question. We're trying to
Yeah,
get to the
so I'm trying-
contingency.
So the percent is, I didn't do it, I
Well-
did it a little differently.
Well, I mean,
What's-
you mentioned that there was 100,000 not included.
Right.
So if we take that set aside,
Mhm.
you would do 15% of base or 12%, or you said 10 to 12? Just give us some,
What's the 511 there?
that's 15% of the 3.4, the construction costs only. And then you could say,
I
well,
think you're pretty close there.
okay, so like 500K is what you'd say roughly.
Okay.
And that would include the lawyers and
Mhm.
this other stuff. Okay.
So if we add 500 to 34,
No, you added to the
3,000,004, sorry.
3791.
3791, yeah.
oh, 3791, that's right.
Or 3708, I'm not
Yeah.
sure where you go. I guess 3708 maybe, right?
Where's the,
After you take out the
So,
rebate.
after we
line
take out the-
21.
Okay, yes, so could you add 3708
Yeah.
to the 5?
Whatever you did, whatever math you've done, Ryan, on line
21E.
26.
I just wanted to ask one last time about the OPM fees. They went from 90 to 218. How certain are we that that is a good estimate? Because we were obviously off pretty substantially in the first go-around. So as far as our, Suzanne or the OPM, if you want
That is my
to.
understanding, that was, we increased the scope of services, and that is we've signed, I don't know if it's a fixed fee or it's a not-to-exceed, actually. I don't know what the contract is.
Fixed fee.
It's a fixed fee. So it's a fixed fee, and we have asked for more services than maybe what was originally anticipated. As, you know, and also that early on, we had a much lower bid contingency, which was the construction contingency, so,
And those were estimates that were given to you by TBA,
yeah.
so that was the
Okay,
other.
so we've got the contract.
Yeah.
If we
This
vote
is where
this,
we
we're
are.
going to build
Yeah.
it and, you know.
It'd be great if it was less, but this is where we are.
And so what is the overage that we would be asking
Million.
for at town meeting?
We
went
thought
from
last meeting you said we wouldn't do
355
that.
last time to,
So because this is a debt exclusion,
Full project, but you have to authorize.
An additional.
Hold on, Scott, one.
Guys,
you're gonna have the same question, so.
Yep.
So because it's a debt exclusion and you're modifying a debt exclusion, council said that you should amend the original vote. So what you're saying is that vote that we took is now X. You're gonna do that at town meeting and the election.
Right, so you don't
What's the
say.
difference between the vote last time and the vote I'm asking, what's the cash increase?
The
Whatever you
delta,
decide
yes.
for this number, minus 3.55 million.
Yeah,
But
so I
that's
was
not how
asking
you
the.
present it,
Okay,
right?
no, but I was just, so what
To
does
do
that
the math.
end up? I
You
want
need
the
to-
math, yeah, so
Yes.
3.55,
Which number do you want?
taken out of 4219, I
4219
guess,
minus
right?
355.
Okay.
I mean, should we just?
anything further?
So, not on the details, but again, the actual warrant would basically say we're amending the prior authorization
Yes.
to be,
Yes,
4.2.
For debt
and
excluded.
it'll either go up or it'll go down.
yeah, I mean, I don't see a choice.
So that number was
It's,
650? 44, what was that, Ryan?
669.
669.
But, I mean, I guess, Travis, it's hard to do this in a vacuum because we're gonna talk sequence of articles, but they're gonna be paired. Either this one comes first or the other one comes first, right?
We'll talk about that in a little bit.
I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you,
Yeah.
you're gonna present the town with $1 million more than they thought it was gonna cost.
Yep.
And then you're gonna ask for something, which we're gonna talk about,
Yep.
which is like 50% more than we thought it was gonna cost. So we have to think about that.
Well, let's do that when we get to the warrant.
No, I understand,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying,
Yep.
doesn't seem to be, I guess the conclusion is there's kind of no way to put the genie back in the bottle on this thing.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Right?
But the question we have is this the right contingency? Is this the amount we want
Oh,
to go to town?
As opposed to more, you mean?
Or whatever, or more or less,
Less.
whatever.
That's what I said. I
think
don't think
these
there's
are,
a
my
choice.
view is that this is what we've been advised.
This is
I
what
think
we've
it's
been advised. It would
reasonable.
be foolish to
and we
ignore
don't
advice.
want to, and we don't want to go
Yes.
less because
Right.
we don't want to go
Right.
back to the town.
That- I do agree with that.
So if we're in agreement on that, we'll move on from the police
Sure.
station because
Sure.
we have a long fire station discussion.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
Suzanne, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so now, we're gonna move on to the fire station. So you guys are welcome to come forward, and Tectron, I think you guys are here too, so. Great. So we had a presentation that was submitted in our packet, I think you're gonna go through that and tell us what you found. Well, tell us the good news.
Introduce yourselves
Yes,
again if
please.
you
Oh,
wouldn't mind.
absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks.
Ryan, are you gonna pull that?
Sure am.
Travis, is this presentation publicly available at this point, or?
Yeah,
Yeah, it was in the packet.
It was in the packet, so it's publicly available.
They get on the website.
You get it, yeah.
You have to go on the website. It's there.
Okay, thank you.
Well, welcome, thank you.
All right.
Uh-oh, what fell? Oh, sorry. My name's attached.
Oh, that was just your,
Yeah. Thank
See?
no
you.
harm, no foul.
All right.
You're already making yourself useful,
Yeah.
and it's not
Jeez.
even been 1 minute.
All right, so please proceed and
Great.
introduce yourself.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Good evening, everybody. It's great to be back here since the interview. My name's Matt Salad. I'm project manager with Tecton Architects. Been working here with you folks for the past few weeks with your chief fire department. With me tonight, who wasn't at the interview, is Jeff McElravy. Want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Jeff McElroy, the principal at Tecton Architects. I lead the public safety market for the company, and been doing public safety for a little while, 38 years now. So I just returned from vacation, so Matt is all on top of this. I'm going to try to get off island time and join in when I have something useful.
Perfect.
It's a tough life, but somebody's got to do it, right?
Not with us tonight, who was at the interview, Rebecca Hopkins, who's another project manager on our public safety team, and Tyler Oshevsky, who's the designer for the project, who's been meeting with the fire department and us as well as our larger team, and EuroPM CMS, who's here as well.
Excuse me, Matt, I got one quick question for you, Jeff. So when it says you're the Director of Public Safety Design, so are you the one with the bulk of the knowledge, for lack of a better word, about fire station requirements, best practices, safety standards?
Yes,
Is that
I've got
primarily
the-
your role?
I've got the long experience in that. And yes,
Okay,
so
great.
I lead the market. And
Great. That's good to know. Thanks.
Next slide, please. So you guys have seen the slide deck, you've seen the presentation, and I'm certain you already have questions and comments and things like that. So we can run through this presentation and just go slide by slide by slide. If you have comments or questions in the interim, please feel free to interrupt and make this a little bit more of a conversation. Otherwise, we have no problem just plowing through. So this slide, this is a little bit about our process so far. So the first step that we engage in as we go through these feasibility studies is really the exploratory phase, really trying to understand, in this case, the fire department's values, what the chief's vision is for the department over the next 30, 40, 50 years, what their immediate needs are, and really trying to go through that process of understanding all those different components that go into the fire station and their operations, and incorporating that into our space needs summary. You know, all those things that we've listened to with the chief, with his membership, creates a whole list of different rooms, descriptions, things that go in that. That's the first step, and that outlines really the wishes, the wants, as well as the needs. Then we go into a discussion phase where we say, all right, this is everything we heard. Now let's sit down and really start refining what is needed and what is going to be supportable by your community, right? So it's one thing to say, you know, this is the chief's list of spaces and this is the building that we're going to sell to the town, but it's another to have those more in-depth conversations about what's really the right fit for Carlisle. And that's something that we engaged with their membership in, compared that against some of the priorities that you folks outlined in the RFQ, and that's what ultimately is providing the plan that we're going to go forward with presenting tonight. We then take all that information and we start really optimizing that and looking for ways that we can overlap spaces, ways that we can create more efficiencies, right? That list of rooms, it's one thing to put boxes at the end of a corridor and eat up all that square footage, but there's also opportunities where spaces can lead into other spaces, things can be combined, their uses can be integrated together, so that we're not building all that square footage, we're finding efficiencies throughout that. And then ultimately planning for the future of the department, looking for ways that this building could be adaptable, so in 10 years, you're not busting at the seams, and in 20 years, when you need to do an addition or build further on this, the building can adapt and it can change over time. So that we're not going and building a whole brand new building in 25, 30 years. We're making less of a commitment in the future. Next slide, please. So we've gone through that space needs assessment. We've gone through some of those discussions with fire department's membership, the membership. But what we really need to get down to is understanding the priorities, the fire department's priorities and the community's priorities, layering it over all of that information, and that ultimately brings us to a solution that's going to be supportable and fits with everybody's needs. Next slide, please. So far to date, as I mentioned, we've met with the chief, we've met with his leadership, we've met with fire department membership. We're here tonight talking to you folks. So we've put together an initial draft space needs assessment. What you see on the top left is an example of what that looks like. It's a list of spaces, you know, that's the summary. Included in that summary, we also have room detail, so every single space that you see on the screen, there's more of them, that's just a snapshot. We fully detail out everything that goes into those spaces. If there's a coffee maker, an outlet, a telephone, a computer, all those inform what that room is needed to be, right? If I just say an office could be 100 square feet or 300 square feet. What sets the size of that is the things that go into it and allow it to function. So that's what happens with that.
Matt, excuse me a second, it's the, so the left-hand side
Yep.
is cut off, right, the administration part, but you're saying this represents what actually exists now?
No,
What
no.
does this represent?
This
The-
is just
the
a snapshot.
request?
This is a snapshot of a larger document. Our full space needs
Okay.
summary, room detail, and all that. The
This
whole
was
programming
everybody's
document.
dreams.
It's like 30, 40 pages long.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um,
And then to the right, the summation is,
So
uh,
yeah. So the image you see on the right. So
Yeah.
these are just snapshots of the tasks we've done thus far.
okay,
So we created our initial space needs. We've evaluated the building and its existing site. We've gone through and laser scanned the entire building, measured everything. We then, when we get an initial space needs, Jeff calls that your jaw hitting the floor moment, because it's a lot bigger than what you were anticipating. So we then took
Fall out of the chair.
fall out of the chair.
Quote me properly, please.
So we took the
way.
we took the initiative right off the bat to say, there's no way everything that we're seeing here is going to be supported by the town. It was encompassing of a 30,000 square foot building,
right.
and so we took the liberty of saying, here's some options, and took some cuts and said, this is what our suggestion of a $10
Okay.
million option and a $15 million option would be. We then met with membership and went through a list of understanding all of their priorities, ranked those priorities, and then applied that to the same metrics, and then created a completely different set of space needs assessments.
And
So-
that prioritization exercise is a real important part of the process, because, we could we could arbitrarily say, well, we should, cut bays, or we could cut this office or cut that. But when you actually ask what are the priorities of the department, and we don't ask which rooms are your priority, which ideas are your priority.
Right.
And the one that so commonly rises to the top is health and safety, apparatus bay congestion. We'll see some of those. We actually have some results of that exercise
Yeah.
in the slide deck later.
And I have a question for you. How many people were in, when you talk about members, what was that total group?
I think we had Chief, if you recall exactly, I think it was about 22 of your members were there at that. Right. So I
And
think
so-
that's about half of your total membership.
And so when you get down to the bar graphs that show, that's based on what, 22 people concluded?
Correct.
Were their priorities? Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Process question. So you had mentioned the needs assessment, obviously starts with the fire department. You also get community input, stakeholder input. My understanding is right now we're at the point where you haven't gotten the community input or stakeholder input, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Because this is the first time we're seeing, I haven't seen the space needs assessment.
Right.
And so just trying to get a sense of where we are in the process at large and in the process approaching town meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
Because I don't want to overprescribe like the options you're presenting here. And I think the tendency is to look at the initial space requirement, which is the large number, the options, and it feels like pick one of these and present one of these. It sounds like there's maybe another feedback loop before we get to that. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, this is the first step in that community engagement process.
Okay.
Speaking to all you folks. So we've been under contract like 2.5, 3 weeks, something like that. So we've been moving at breakneck pace, and we've got to gather the initial data before we can have those greater community conversations.
Great, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And what we're really looking for in those exercises is finding the commonalities, the alignments.
Yep.
If the fire department feels this is important, the community feels that's important, then that's what we want to make sure that the program data reflects, because then we have alignment in what matters. We had the comment earlier about the number of vehicles. That may be a place where we have a lack of alignment. We've got to talk about that a little bit more. But certainly, that's part of the process and learning where everybody is. Because at the end of the day, we're asking for, community for a lot of money.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is make sure that we're asking the community for a lot of money for things that they support and the users can support.
Next slide, please. So just touching real quick on the site, so looking at some of our initial investigations, it's certainly a challenge site, and some of the initial test fit options that we've looked at try to start to understand and unpack some of those challenges between the existing wetlands on site, the wellhead protection zone that we have for the public water supply well that's back here, the existing leach field and septic system. It's a very congested site on a large parcel, but we're sort of hemmed in, and it's just a layer to the challenges that we will manage through the process. Next slide. So this is simply a summary of that initial space needs that we have looked at, and certainly caveating that with the understanding that you've flipped through the slide deck and understand this is not where we ended up or what we would recommend to this town. But we need to start by understanding all of the needs and wants of the department through the vision of the chief and his membership over multiple decades existence of this facility. So if we have to start there, and then we can start peeling back the layers of the onion, and we do that through the prioritization. Next slide, please. So again, as Jeff alluded, right, a priority it's not a space, it's an idea. And so understanding what those ideas are then influence the space. And these are some examples of some priorities. And we'll get further into the detail throughout the presentation on the fire department's priorities. This is just an example of a priority, right? You could tell me that training is really important to your firefighters, and I can go and say that the American Fire Service actually says that improvements in training is attributed to less incident deaths within the fire service. So there's a lot of data to support some of these ideas. So this is about, right, it's about finding that balance, right, the understanding what these priorities mean against the overall budget of the project, right? Some of them might be really, really great ideas. It might be great to say, let's put every single vehicle that the fire department has and put it in a heated apparatus bay within the main building. Like that'd be a really great thing to do, but the overall cost to do that is probably gonna be prohibitive. So we might wanna think of, alternative ways to achieve some of the same goals.
So Matt, on that slide, that's a conceptual slide, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Not an actual matrix where you plot it.
no,
But
not
that
at
would
all.
be- Now you have three alternatives. I mean, the one on the upper left is probably, well, actually, no, I shouldn't say that. I mean, option one is somewhere in the upper right quadrant.
That would be correct, yes.
And option two, I guess, is in the lower left of sorts.
Yep,
But I would be quite interested in where you put option three as a bubble.
yeah, that would be,
I mean, having these random dots doesn't help us.
sure.
I mean, we should actually populate that matrix with.
Yeah, we could certainly do that.
Okay.
Next slide. So this gets into some of the prioritization conversations we had with fire department membership. On the left, you'll see sort of a questionnaire that we worked with them on. Outlines a number of different questions about really just conversation starters about, do they see a need? What sort of priorities are there? And then we had them rank a lot of them. Question number 2 is really the primary question that really gets to a lot of what we're going to be talking about today. And so we asked them about seven different priorities: firefighter health, operational safety, bay capacity, improvements in response time, training, officer workspace, and living accommodations. The bar graphs to the right are their priority 7 and 6 responses. So basically, that tabulates the top choices in the second tier choices. So firefighter health, operational safety, bay capacity. Overwhelming majority said those 3 things are their number 1 priority as far as the
They
fire
could pick as
department.
many as they wanted, or just one?
It was, so what they
They had to rank
had to do was
them.
rank them 1 through 7. So of those 7 different priorities, a majority ranked those 3 as
But
number
like the
1.
4 people said firefighter health was the most important,
Yep,
and 3 others said operational safety was the most important.
right. Those seem closely linked together, but those are actually different in the
Yeah.
implementation in the building.
And this adds up to 22?
I
I didn't do it, 4 and 4 is 8, 9, 10, 11, no, it doesn't.
Let's see, 1, 2, 3.
14.
Like that, yeah. I'm not sure if everybody filled one out, but,
So I don't understand the difference between bar graph 1 and
7 and 6.
7 and 6.
Yeah.
Well,
so,
6
so
was
the,
number
the,
2 choice.
so the top bar graph is the top choice, the second
That's your-
bar graph is
Number 1
the second
choice,
choice.
number 2 choice.
Oh.
So you'd have, if you did like they do in voting sometimes, they'll force.
That was like ranked choice.
Yeah, ranked choice voting, yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
that's,
what you
okay,
have
so,
to come back with, right?
all right, now I get it.
I think what shows a little bit more value in this is if you go to the next slide. This is the average across all of the respondents. So this is showing that overwhelmingly bay capacity, firefighter health, operational safety, and training and development were prioritized by membership over response time, officer workspace, and living accommodations. Right, so this is basically saying we need more space for our vehicles. We're concerned about our health, safety, and operational safety. And training and development, which we'll get into a little bit more, is really about making sure that you've got the best trained volunteer firefighters you can have. But it's also a great recruitment and retention tool, right? That's a way to bring people in if you have training facilities that are modern. And it's not a very expensive thing to incorporate into the building.
Matt, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble making sense on this slide.
Sure.
You're saying that the training and development was within the top 4, but if you look at the responses above, training and development in the priority level 7, the first choice was, and it looks like it was only 1 person that put that, and then on your second choice, again, it was only 2 people, so.
That's So those two on the right, those are people that said, these are their number one. So
No,
this
I
is- yeah,
understand
yeah.
that, so I don't understand though, how do you get to training and development being up as high as it is? When those so
Are
few
you
people.
overweighting, are you saying like your first choice is worth 7 points and your second choice is worth 6 and so forth?
Yep.
Is that how you came up with that third
Yeah,
chart?
and so you
But
average.
what was that? Tell us what that, like, if we, the 6 of us sitting here, had to do that exercise.
Sure.
And you say, what's your number one choice? And I say bay capacity.
Mhm.
Then that is one at, a score of 7 or something.
Correct.
And then you ask me my second choice, and I say training and development. It gets, I would think, what is that, what's the math behind it, I guess? Because maybe you're overweighting. Like, if it by the third time, I guess what I would say is, given resource constraints, right? You can't just say, what's your first choice, what's your second? You gotta say, like, you have 2 choices. Give me your top 2, and that's it. That's all you get. Like, you can't give them 18 choices, because some of these things bubble up to the top. I think Barney's correct. Training development, it may be like everybody's third or fourth choice, and that's okay. But in a constrained resource environment where we have to cap some stuff off, it shouldn't make the list. It gets it overweight in this diagram. That's what I'm trying to say. I mean, I urge you to go back through your, do you have a statistician on call? I mean, I'm serious. It's only a sample size of 22, or maybe you
Yeah.
should do all 22. But like, statisticians do that. Like, they help you manipulate that data.
This data is representative of 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, 7
No,
7
it's
priorities.
14 people or
The
so.
first, yeah, it looks like
But, I mean,
14
you really have to
people
think
took
about
it.
the
It's
impact
tiny,
of.
yeah.
We have somebody in town who's really good at it, by the way, and I'm sure she'd be happy to help you. But, I mean, it's important because we're gonna have to make these hard decisions.
Right.
And Barney's absolutely correct. If if this skews our impression of the data, it's not the right outcome.
We'll revisit that math and see if we can
Sure.
clean it up
Yeah.
for you.
But is it fair to say from
Weren't
this
expecting
slide,
this, were you?
from
Excuse
the next one down, the mean priority level, is it fair to say that the top 3 are bay capacity, firefighter health, and operational safety?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think it is fair to say that.
And you think that would carry through?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
That would carry, but.
Yeah. All right. And Chief, you agree with that? Chief Soros?
Yes.
Okay.
I think one of the things to understand in terms of wide membership is many of the people have never seen a modern fire station, never been in one.
Never seen a what?
Been in a modern fire station.
Right. No, I get
So,
that.
If they're in Boxborough, if they're in Bedford, they never, which they've seen, that's not what the world's gonna be in 5 years. So just to understand, they're also skewed a little bit in terms of their responsibility.
But they're real on-call
Absolutely.
firefighters, right? Which
Absolutely.
is the group we're trying to continue to recruit to work here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
But that brings up a really good point, Brian. Like, should you tour some,
Yeah, we've talked about that after.
yeah, I mean,
That
give
was
people an idea,
pretty
like
good.
what could be, right?
Hmm.
All right.
We're good?
2 more slides? Yeah, right here. So, what we can show you is some of these ideas through the lens of a comparison of your existing facilities versus a modern fire station and what some of these ideas might look like. So in this case, we're looking at it through the lens of Lexington Fire Headquarters, which is a project we did, which is not too far from here. It's a career fire station, so it's not an apples-to-apples comparison, but just because a large career fire department has amenities doesn't mean that there's a lesser cost solution that can provide those same amenities in a volunteer fire organization. So if you go to the next slide.
Well, what is this program equity in this pie chart?
That pie chart is this is the typical relationship of space distribution within a fire department, right? So about 45% of the space is typically designated to fire response, so that's your apparatus bays. Fire medic support are those rooms that live off the bays that help support the apparatus themselves. These are storage rooms and supply rooms and things like that. And then live and work environments are your office spaces, your bunking, your day rooms, and the like. So that's a That's a snapshot of what's typical in both career and volunteer fire departments.
That's what you mean by program equity.
Yep.
Okay.
So your existing facilities now, so the apparatus bays, right? Those are, there isn't a lot of support space off of the bays, right? There's some standards and some best practices in terms of bay size, height, door openings, things like that. You're actually not in bad shape with those. Right now, your bay width is 16'8". That's about the small side of what would be recommended in a modern fire facility. Typically, you're looking for 18 feet in your center aisles and 22 feet on your end aisles. But the problem that you have is because there's no real support or storage space for all the equipment and gear they have, it all lands in the aisles, right? So when we're talking about operational safety, that's what becomes a concern here, right? If you're a call firefighter coming into the station, grabbing your gear, running down the aisle to get on a truck and respond in a quick fashion, it takes one thing to be out of place in that aisle for you to trip, fall, somebody else to come ripping out of there in a truck and not see you and cause a serious injury or worse. So getting stuff off the floors, getting rid of all that clutter, right, would help for that. Firefighter health, very important to have separation between what are called hot and cold zones. NFPA has two standards. They have a separate standard for call fire departments for their operations and response, and they have another standard for career fire departments. Both of those lead you to NFPA 1500, which is the health and safety standard for fire departments. It doesn't care if you're a volunteer organization, it doesn't care if you're a career organization. It says one risk is too much, so we want to make sure that every firefighter has the same level of protection from carcinogens on the bay floor. And it's exhaust from the vehicles, it's the PPE that they wear, it's the gear when they come back from a fire response that's contaminated. And we want it to be contained to the apparatus bays and not migrate to the rest of the building. That's done through active HVAC systems that are creating positive pressurization from support spaces into the bays. It's how you're storing and decontaminating your PPE, air packs, and things like that. These are not extremely expensive things that need to be done, but is something that would certainly be impactful in any renovation or addition going forward.
And there's a definite overlap between that bay congestion that Matt was talking about earlier and satisfying some of these requirements. If you get the proper decontamination area, that means that gear is not on the bays, it's in the decontamination area. If you have turnout gear storage, again, you get that gear off the floor and into the proper turnout gear storage. So a lot of these have a lot of overlap with other considerations. And the really good news is that when it comes down to the biggest health and safety consideration, we're talking about pressurization and maybe a small airlock so that you have a proper transition from the hot zone to the cold zone. We have departments that like to do more than that, but the NFPA guidance is a transition zone and air pressurization.
Training, so right now we've got a very small classroom. Fire department is not able to do all their trainings within that. They're not able to get their entire membership in there. But the classroom training is just one small piece of training, right? There's a lot of on-the-job, hands-on training that fire departments undergo. And then live workspaces, especially in volunteer fire departments. These live workspaces are critically important for your recruitment and your retention, right? You can only geographically recruit to a small area if you don't have a space for folks to come and spend time during the day or for their families to enjoy with themselves. A lot of volunteer fire departments, especially over the past decade, have been really investing in having some of these these live and work areas so that they can be there and they can recruit from a larger radius, right? There's only so many folks you can get from 4 minutes away from a volunteer station. But if you start to broaden that radius out, you know, if you're going to get someone from 20, 30 minutes away, how are you going to get them, you know, to participate in the fire department and be there when a call comes through? So a few examples of how that can be done on the next slide. So the first image on the top left, right? That's what a modern apparatus bay should look like. It's just a place for the trucks. There shouldn't be anything else cluttering the floors that's causing a safety issue. Having segregated space for things like the SCBA compressor that fills the air packs that they use for when they own a fire. That shouldn't be out on the fire floor. That should be in a self-contained room. The bottles, the air packs, they should be stored separately. The gear should be stored separately. These are all NFPA guidelines, not codes, but they are guidelines. Training, it's not just the classroom. The image on the left under that training slide, that's showing the back of an apparatus bay. You can have a mezzanine back there, and that could be used for a number of different trainings. You can do confined space training in there, rappelling, different ways that firefighters will encounter issues in the field. You can simulate that on the fire floor in a safe and effective manner with very little cost. Most fire departments, there's already going to be a mezzanine, right? Because we have a tall base space, but we have small support space that goes in it. So if we're building one large structure and having some support space underneath it, that double height space will afford us to have a mezzanine that we can do a lot of this training on. It can double as additional storage and things like that. So it's sort of a win-win. And then again, live workspace. Allowing there to be some level of preparedness for folks that are in the department, but also increasing your ability to recruit and retain. Next slide. So this is just a diagram showing how some of these spaces come together. This is actually a floor plan for a small volunteer fire department that has classroom space on the right with living accommodations of a day room in living space, a small fitness room, some bunks off to the top, and then the apparatus bays, showing a 22-foot wide bay on the end, 18-foot aisle bays, and then all the support spaces that share that. And then you can see on the bottom left, a stair that brings you up to the top above all of those support spaces and provides a mezzanine that's used for storage training.
Is that a comparable town to where that?
Bloomfield's a bigger community.
It's
it is.
Greenfield?
Bloomfield.
Bloomfield.
Bloomfield, Connecticut.
It's
Bloomfield,
a bigger
Connecticut.
community.
This is,
but they
this
only
is
have
their substation.
their oh, okay.
It's I think the population is around 20,000 residents. They have two separate water districts, so they're completely separate from the town. So they have their own tax base.
Okay.
There's two water districts, one that has its own they each have their own fire organization, but there's about 5 fire departments in this town.
Okay.
Bigger geographic area too.
Okay.
See, one of the most interesting, wide demographic towns in the state of Connecticut. It's
Yes.
Extremely poor areas and extremely wealthy. It's
Yeah.
like the craziest town.
My great grandfather and my great grandfather both served as chief in that community.
Really?
Wow.
Founded the department, in fact. This is getting into the options. So again, this is option 1. This is the initial space needs that had all the needs as well as the wants at 29,000 square feet. Back of the napkin, we're looking anywhere between $800 and $900 a square foot in construction costs for a fire station. So certainly an expensive project and one that we would not recommend to this community. If you go to the next slide, this is looking at how that would sit on the site. This is looking at basically encapsulating the existing station in a large C. That would be 2 stories, elevators, stairs, all the support space associated with that.
Elevators. We gotta talk about elevators
Talking
later.
about that later.
We're gonna talk about that.
If you need an elevator, you shouldn't be on call. You don't need to be on call.
So not only, is this program not supportable by the budget, but it's also barely supportable by the site itself. It's really going to be a constrained site with it. It's taking up a lot of space.
Doesn't give us a lot of frontline bays where the trucks are right at the door, because you can see the way that C wraps. We get all of our front doors, our bay doors on the left side.
So if you go to the next slide. So this is looking at a program that would be right around the $10 million budget. This is about what you would get with that. So in the all-in one that we looked at before, that was looking at basically an addition of about 7 apparatus bays to get all the vehicles in there, 8 bunk rooms, training facilities, all the support spaces that go in there, private offices for all the different functions that they would need. This looks at getting rid of all the bunking, all the living facilities, within the building entirely, reducing it down to one single apparatus bay addition. It says 2-bay addition, so that means 2 vehicles, so it's 1 bay, double
Oh,
deep.
2 vehicles like head-to-head, you mean?
Head to- Yep. So what they have out there right now is, those are double deep bays, because they can fit 2 vehicles. We'd be, reducing a lot of the living space and really stripping this down to basically the bare minimum. It
But
really,
it's, excuse me, sorry, Matt.
Sure.
But just but like the firefighter living space, you're going from 451 to, is that 1,100?
Yeah.
Ryan, your cursor is right on the.
Yes, it's 11.
1,100, so it's a little less than triple or whatever. So there must be something in there for the
That would be
living space.
day room, kitchen area, a gathering space for all
Uh-huh.
intents and purposes for the firefighters when they are on site.
But no
But
bunk
you-
room,
you
no
get none
of
ability
those
to
other
sleep
amenities,
over.
what this is, the 451 square feet comprises is off of the bays currently, there's a small sort of kitchen living area here.
Mhm.
This is looking to just increase the size a little bit. Not additional rooms or anything like that.
Mhm.
So, go to the next slide. This is looking at that site test fit, and basically what you're looking at is apparatus bay off to the north with a little bit of support space for that. To the bottom right, we'd be looking at basically a 32-foot by 32-foot classroom slash training room, basically a community training room. So they would increase the capacity of the classroom that they have now, use it as a public amenity space, and it would be ADA accessible because you wouldn't have to be going upstairs.
And this would be, what's in there in yellow, the one-story addition?
The one-story addition,
Okay.
correct.
So, but, Matt, I guess the next, let's go to the block diagram, because the next slide is,
Well, there was one other point to point out here too, is recognizing that this isn't meeting the needs of the bay capacity challenge.
well, that's why I want to go to the next slide.
Yeah, so
But- well, the
this
outbuilding,
includes,
yeah.
an outbuilding off to the northwest of the site as well.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, I
Yeah.
didn't realize
And
that.
what's in the outbuilding?
All the extra.
Trailers.
Just extra
extra
trailers,
vehicles.
trucks, things
Uh-huh.
like that.
Oh.
So with a public safety building, the building code says that, public safety buildings, hospitals, things like that have to be operational when the worst disasters occur, right? So they have different structural classifications within the building code, and there's 4 risk categories, and a public safety building is a risk category 4 structure. So just by doing that, it makes the architecture significantly more expensive than any other building type.
Right.
If it's not critical vehicles used for fighting a fire, the support trailers, the boat, the other things that they use for other incidents, we can put that in an outbuilding, downgrade the classification of that structure to a risk category 2 and save money. So that's what we're doing here
Okay.
in that.
So, and that's part of the 6,000 additional square feet, though?
Correct.
Okay.
And that's not heated?
It would probably be warmed because there are some things that are gonna be stored in that can't freeze. They've got a trailer that houses a number of pumps they use to set up for when they're drafting on ponds and things like that. There's other, small engines and things like that they use for certain incident response that sort of need to stay warm or they won't function.
But think of it as, tempered rather than warm and cozy.
We're talking
Right.
50 degrees, not 75. Next slide. So this is a block diagram for what that would essentially look like. So up on the top, you can see the single double deep bay that we'd be adding with some support space. We'd have a little bit of EMS, so by positioning the ambulance up there, we'd position right next to that any EMS storage and medical supply restocking closet. A decontamination space so that when you are coming back from a fire response that you have a space to properly decontaminate, which they don't have now. A workroom, which is parts and tools and things like that for working on the vehicles. And then a general storage space just to kind of capture some of the stuff that's down on
Nozzles
the
and
floor.
chainsaws, all the other stuff.
And then to give them a little bit of support for some of their living quarters would be a fitness room for physical fitness activities. Aside from that, we basically, to the plan south, creating a small lobby, some public restrooms, and then that community training room.
But,
And just,
Go ahead.
Does that take into account renovating then the existing? Because it looks like in dark gray there. So you're changing, I'm just trying to think of the scope, like how involved is this?
So, so in terms of the ground level renovation, right, so right here is where one of the ambulances is currently parked. So we would be taking half of that to extend this lobby for the training room and create public restrooms, because we'll need those by code. The other half of that will create a female locker and shower room. The male locker and shower room that exists now would remain as it is. Their current kitchen and dining area that they have down there, we can use that to store bunker gear, their turnout gear. And then basically everything on the upper floor, mostly just leave it as it is.
What is up, what's up there?
What's up there, yeah.
Right
The
now,
training
they've
room.
got the training room, they've got the chief's office, he's got an admin's office, and there's a small bathroom. But we don't want to get in, if we're not going to get into adding stairs and elevators and making the second floor accessible, we're pretty much going to just leave it alone.
So, two questions, Matt. One is on that note, I think Travis was kind of going there. Is there any reno that you can do in the existing that does not trigger bringing everything up to code?
So we can renovate 50% of the building before we can have to bring everything up. to
Is
code.
that what you're trying to
We're
accomplish?
trying to keep it below that
Okay.
threshold,
Yep.
yes.
Then, on the proposed addition, which is a height of a bay, why wouldn't you, or would you potentially make it 4 bays instead of 2 bays? Like, not put all that one-story stuff in there, but just, as long as you're building that structure, add the bays, because that's what people want, and then maybe do something on the other side too.
There's a trade-off here. We could certainly do that, but not within this $10 million budget. So
That
we
one,
could.
what we're looking at is not a 10 million. Oh, yeah, this is the 10 million.
This is the $10 million
Yeah, this is the
option.
10.
There are extra bays on the,
Yeah,
on the-
it
says
on the top.
two.
There's 2 proposed additions, the one on the top there.
No, I know, but I'm saying, the
Use that
yellow
for-
on the upper stripe is a single-story stuff. Why not just clear that out of there and make 4 bays? Because number
that
one is
gives you
base.
the support space that helps get all
Well,
that
cram
equipment
that
off
in
the
on the
floor.
blower. I mean, if base is the most important thing, like, make more bays.
Well, it's not.
Well, that's
you
sort
need to
of part
support
of the
space.
priority discussion, right?
Yeah.
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 But you said upstairs currently is there is a training space as well as an office and a bathroom.
Yeah.
So, and then you have a community training room down here. So what are you thinking, the upstairs training
We're gonna use the
room?
old training room as storage or possibly an office.
Yeah, if we start getting into putting space up there that isn't down on the ground level, now we're gonna start talking about triggering an elevator.
Right. And obviously, it's hard to, visualize the scale of things,
Those
but
coyotes?
the lobby, the lobby looks to be like, I don't know, maybe a third the size of the community training room. I'm just curious what the thinking is about the lobbies. Is it, in reality, would it be that? Because it seems like a lot of space for a lobby. If
So-
it's about a third of the community training room.
So part of this is let me rephrase that. The lobby can be smaller, certainly. What we are trying to do is provide a little bit of flexibility for future growth down the road, and that's not through the lobby. What we would probably end up doing is, for this training room, is instead of doing it just a normal roof structure, we'd probably put a composite deck on top of that. So we'd pour a concrete deck roof structure over the training room, such that in the future, you could add on vertically over that space. If you did that, and then took into account the rest of the second floor, you could create quite a bit more office and living space up there. But you would probably need a stair, and you would probably need an elevator to do that. So the lobby is sized such that you can spur off of it an elevator and a stair, and allow that accessibility up above.
And that's
Someday,
based on
possibly.
when you project ahead, where are you getting your projections? Because it sounds like when you just said you'd need to expand and build something up above, where is that coming from? Sort of looking at the Carlisle population and the potential area left for
this-
putting in.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So for this scheme in particular, it's
Yeah.
because we're knowing that we're not building enough for today as this scheme sits. And
Uh-huh.
so we would anticipate that in 20 years, someone's gonna be like, well, we need to build more now because it's been long enough. And we wanna make sure that that option is is available to construct and add on without substantially more cost.
But you wouldn't be able to build more bays, so, right? I mean, if you're just going up and using that second floor, so what's the thinking about what would be up there?
Living space,
Ah, okay.
which is the one thing that this option cuts off the most.
This couldn't accommodate a full-time fire department.
Oh, that's the projection, that we would be moving to a full-time fire department?
No.
Just that addition wouldn't get you there.
No, it's just,
No, I know.
No, it's just
there's no
gonna give
living
you-
space, so you.
No, I know. I'm sorry. What did you say, first of all? This assumes we are going to a full-time?
No.
This
I'm
assumes
saying
we're
you-
continuing to do on-call.
This means that you're on call for forever.
Well, not only that, but what I heard him say, though, was that this is not really even enough for today.
Yes,
And
I
that
did
we-
hear him say
that
that.
it means that we
Yep.
will have to, and of course, the last time, we thought we were gonna build above the fire station, that didn't pan out so well, so.
Okay. but
Yeah,
that-
there's been big adjustments in the structural code in the years that I've been doing this. and
Yeah.
And, but
I
that's
cannot
not to
tell
say
you-
there won't be any new ones going
That
down
is
the
true.
road, and we already, we just had stretch code, and then the special stretch code, and so there'll be more coming down, and not to mention the fact that some of your building materials will be going out of date, because they'll be priced out of the possibility, so.
All right,
Okay.
let's keep going, please.
Keep going?
Yeah, well,
Yeah, we've got to.
we do have a lot on our agenda tonight.
Yep.
We want to get through all this.
Of course.
Quickly.
So this is the third option. This is looking at adding an additional bay, an additional double deep bay to the north. This gets all of the necessary frontline response vehicles into the bays and able to respond. This also includes some bunking and some living accommodations, as well as some office space. And we did that by creating some combined space. So sort of, not saying this is going to be a bunk, this is going to be an office, but let's put some of these things together.
It's a daytime office and a nighttime bunk.
Mm-hmm.
So this looks at basically an additional 10,000 square feet over the existing. So this is about 4,000 square feet more than the previous option we looked at. Let's go to the next slide. So in this, you can see the bays here a little bit deeper. So we added another 18 feet or so to this mass. And then we were looking at a one-story addition wrapping around the front of the building and then up to the north. We'd be cutting into the hillside a little bit in order to achieve that, but it's certainly feasible.
And you still have the outbuilding.
Yeah, the other thing with this is this would require us, actually with this and the previous option, rezoning this to a central business district zone. I've spoken to the building official about this. Seems like it wouldn't be too big of an issue to do. We'd have to present it at the town meeting to get that approved.
That's in order to get closer to the road.
Yeah, to get the 20-foot setback instead of the 40.
Mm.
Could go for
And luckily, we're
variance.
out of the historic district by the time we get there, so let's make it a little easier.
Next slide. And so again, like the previous option where we talked about the training room, we could also put a composite deck on this to help set it up for future growth vertically, as well as planning for, if we're gonna go down that road, we would also probably pre-plan out some areas where an elevator might go or where stairs would go. But this also envisions this as a single-story addition with no elevators, no stairs, none of that.
And what's different from this option to the previous option, option 2, is that instead of, well, what's written here, it says 4 bays, but it's just one long thing.
Yeah, so we're-
2 of them head to head, right?
Yeah, so we're
this
doubling
would
it.
have double the addition to the previous option.
Exactly.
Okay.
Next slide. And this looks at that sort of spatial arrangement. So this is the existing fire station, this box here. And what we'd be looking at is taking, this is the addition off to the north with the 2 bays and then some support space. We've actually, where we showed it in the previous options where you saw like the apparatus bay and then a bar of support space. We've actually scattered the support space based on the way the fire department would operate and respond into the building to try to maximize the amount that we're reusing and limit the amount that we're building. So apparatus bay addition off to the north. We'd have an area here where we'd have their turnout gear, their bunker gear would be stored here. This allows them to respond in, come right into the bunker gear, and then whichever way they need to go to depending on what vehicle they need to grab for the response, are basically centrally located within those bays. So it helps really improve that response time. Down around the bottom of this, so we'd have a small lobby centrally located. To the north of that would be a community training room, classroom setting. Below that would be our restrooms. We have a kitchen, dining, day room space. And then around here is a series of what we're saying is office and bunkering. So you imagine these as little 100 square foot hoteling offices so that you can recruit from a larger radius with a pull down Murphy bed so that you can be there for longer, when there's longer duration storms. In the future, if you start to do duty shifts and things like that, it starts to set the department up for 5, 10, 15 years down in the future, and allows them to expand that recruitment radius. We then take over that ambulance bay here. The northern side of it would become your firematic support spaces, so these are all those storage pieces and decon spaces. We'd have a small fitness room within this sort of zone of fire living and workspace with a transition zone that allows you to create that hot zone, cold zone separation. The existing locker room would become the female locker room and shower. The existing kitchen day room area would become the male locker and shower. And this one would also have a small outbuilding, a smaller outbuilding than option 2. That would house the rest of the ancillary vehicles and support trailers and things like that they have.
So,
This one, it's it's a little bit more important on this option for that outbuilding to house those because we're utilizing so much more of the site capacity.
Yeah.
That we run out of space to store a lot of
right,
stuff.
but I mean, kind of where I was going before, if you built the upper addition, which would pick up a lot of bay space and, bunker gear and that, and didn't build the L, the backwards L, you just prepare that you could build it, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, lobby, it's easy to say and harder to design, but just build this side, build the upper bay, get as many vehicles as is practical, and then whatever else you need to put in there, and then just have a plan whenever if we do have to again build, that we could build around the shell of the existing one. I'm not quite hearing a compelling argument for building that backwards L. That's my impression.
Well, where are you putting them during the day? The kitchen, dining, day room, and the
Well,
community
you may
training
have,
room?
maybe it takes 2 little yellow blocks. I mean,
I think before we get into the
Yeah,
nitty gritty of
I think
this, we need to kind of see the whole big
Yeah.
picture here of the different options and figure out which.
I think we're seeing them. This is the third option, so. The
Wow.
reason, you say that, but now he's gonna go to what is evil about option 2 and all that, so it's important. No, it's a pitch, right?
Yes,
It's a
yeah.
pitch.
It is a pitch.
It's an upsell pitch, and
Just
I'm
from
not saying because of you guys, but it is an upsell pitch.
For my benefit, you're referring to growing, just so I understand, being a call fire department, is the general understanding that will continue to get harder with time recruiting volunteers, that we will have to have more volunteers from a wider radius in the next 5 years, 10 years. That's the trend, correct?
The trend nationally is
Yeah.
every volunteer fire department is struggling with recruitment and retention.
But when you say grow, that's what you're talking
Yeah,
about, the living
in
space.
order to make sure that you have the proper number of responders to operate the vehicles in compliance with the NFPA, fire departments are always having to do recruitment and retention. But yes, you're absolutely right.
It's not
The
about a
growth-
growing population
Yeah,
in
it's not about
Carlisle. It's
Correct.
needing a-
community growth. It's
Okay.
about continuing to grow and encourage people to participate and be involved in the important work that's done there.
Because I
Or
think
if not grow, not shrink at least,
Because I think one of my big concerns with all of this is the town approves an option, we move forward, and then we can't support a call fire department anymore in 15 years, and we don't have a building that supports a career fire department, and then now you're stuck.
That's kind of
That's
what they're
the whole
saying.
idea.
Well, that's, I mean, understanding what that
Yeah.
I
trend
mean,
looks
this one is a little bit more transitional, if it
Right.
came to that. You know, there's a lot of work that's being done by volunteer fire departments to continue to promote better recruitment and retention. The shift schedule, the duty shift that Matt talked about, one of our clients right now is experimenting with doing duty shifts because their volunteers are saying, yeah, we'd be happy to, you know, to spend a Saturday night here, one night, you know, every few weeks, so that we're right there and ready to respond as part of their, you know, their obligation to the volunteer organization. There's, you know, I can think of extraordinary measures that some communities have gone to. I had a client in Mankato, Minnesota, who came to me and said, I want you to design us a fire station. I'm like, okay. He said, I want you to design us like condos in the back, because we have a lot of college kids, and we can get the college kids, give them free or reduced rent, room and board to be participants in the volunteer fire department. I've seen that twice in my career. That's kind of extreme measure.
Put them in a
But I
box.
see a lot of really good ideas for improving recruitment and retention. And that sense of camaraderie that happens in a fire department, and that's why day rooms and even the fitness rooms are such important aspects of that. You get people to come to the fire station to do a little bit of workout. We get the people to come to the fire station to do work from home and things like that. That's been a big trend to keep more people involved in the organization.
The only thing you've heard so far on priorities is the membership's priorities, and I think the membership is amazing, right? But one of your goals and priorities is to make sure that you have those members, not just now, but in the future. So if you're in the organization now, you're like, this is what I need to be successful, but you're not considering the future members' needs coming in. So if you don't create work, living space, fitness space, it's going to be very hard in our economic bubble to continue to attract people unless the membership as it's existed continues, and I hope so.
Let's talk
And
priorities.
would
Nope, sorry.
you, if it came to it, would you put the living space, the fitness, the, you know, day room, those pieces as a way to continue to recruit the volunteers that you need ahead of having more base space, or less than ideal base space, but some additional base space? I'm just,
That's a tricky one, because yes, I think, you know, the data says, you know, the response to the fire department said they're concerned about the bay congestion, they're concerned about the bay capacity, they're concerned about the health and safety, and those were top priorities. However, if you provide the bays and none of that other space, then the concern becomes, are you able to continue to recruit and continue to keep people involved in volunteer firefighting? And, you know, I think that is a decision that the community needs to weigh a little bit as well. You know, how committed are we to seeing the department continue to grow and thrive? And I don't mean to be, you know, scary about that in any way. I just think it's something we all have to think about. But yeah, your priorities say base space, so far.
That's kind of what option 3 is. If you look at it, you're losing a lot of base space in order to get that space that we're talking about. That's kind of what that's doing.
but that's 4 more bays over
You're
option.
losing a bunch.
Yeah, but we're
You're
also,
losing quite a bit in here.
we're also losing these become second line response instead of front line response over here, as does this. So there are trade-offs in this plan towards that.
Yeah,
I don't like that.
and so I see when you, over here to the right, which you can't see all that well, but the remaining vehicles, so you're saying you
Yep.
have 2 of your engines that aren't in a bay?
Well,
Right?
it's
But
been in
in
the
the
other
scenarios too.
Those are,
Well, but no, the scenario above that is more
This one.
Right,
that are
right, there are
remaining,
even
that
more,
are
right.
outside, yeah, and then option 1, I think, had
See that?
all of them. I don't know
See
where
how
that
they-
is.
Couldn't
Both
use.
go out of
Yeah.
both directions,
Yeah.
and then these
Okay,
So it tries to make that walk the balance.
right.
So,
Right.
can we look at option 2 again, the block diagram? Because I guess I don't know anything about firefighting, but it seems to me that
In this discussion.
losing the two-way doors in the main building, I mean, isn't that like pretty important for traffic flow to have doors at each side? And, you know, the option 3, you're gonna have congestion, right? Because you always have to go out one direction. It just doesn't seem to, so my question is.
That is less of an issue than the fact that we don't really have secondary pieces. The
Secondary.
fact that something has to leave before the engine behind it leaves.
Well, but that, you wouldn't, in the double door, you don't have that, right?
Exactly.
Right,
I
so
mean,
you.
that's what the constraint is, not so much that they're all going at the same time.
Okay, so you're making my point better. Great, so you want that, and then why couldn't you, instead of community, why couldn't you put a strip at the bottom? If you need to, you know.
Backwards L.
Yeah, but the backwards L, but not as big, just to strip, or even prepare. Here's the question, Matt, like, if we're today an on-call fire department, so presumably both the on-call and the career guys need the trucks, and they need the decon, and they need the room to maneuver, everybody needs the same thing. The difference seems to be, when you go to the career fire department, you need more bunk room, you need more that stuff. Again, can't you build that later? Can't, or put the I mean, I guess, again, I'm not a firefighter, but the elements of this look better, really, than option 3 to me. It preserves more of the important stuff right now, and yes, sensitive to the fact that there may be, you may have to plan for a changing type of firefighter, but that's not gonna be the equipment-based stuff, it's gonna be the other stuff, right? The life,
Well, this one doesn't have any sort of place to put, you know, if you want to stay overnight.
no, but that's what I'm saying, Kate, you could put the L at the bottom. I mean, you don't,
Just not as big.
Okay.
I don't see in option 3
Yeah, that would-
how you
that would be
really
like a-
benefit
Leave
by
the lobby
cutting off
where it
those
is and then put the
doors.
bunking and everything
It
to
would
the
be like
left
an
of that.
option 2A, where it's
2
Yeah.
point, whatever.
Yeah,
Something in the middle.
Whatever, I mean, that's just my impression. Option 3 actually seems to move to a more constrained condition. In the thing that people value, in the two things that were the most valuable, base space and congestion, or whatever they call it. So, I don't know.
I want the select board to kind of step back for a minute, because I know we have a ton of stuff on our agenda. We're a half hour over.
Well,
Yeah.
all right.
Wait, I'm just saying, this is important, and I'm trying to figure out where, like, as a select board, we want to head with all of this. Because
Right.
this is the first time we're getting all this stuff kind of by a fire hose, no pun
Right.
intended. It's coming at us, and
Well, you
and
thought
we're gonna
about that
need,
one.
we're gonna need some input, we're gonna need community
So
input.
I'm saying, not ready for spring. That's what
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Yeah, I agree.
And
I
I just
agree.
wanted to, that's why I'm
Then we
talking
can
about
end it
this.
right now, just, if we agree on that.
No,
then-
but we want to.
No, we can end it for the moment, because we do
Yeah,
have the timeline.
yes,
But
yeah.
nothing I'm hearing tells us we're ready for spring.
I tend to agree, that's why I brought this up,
Okay.
because I think that we are now faced with a lot of big decisions as a town, and how, as a select board, how we want to present this going forward.
What is the next step in the process? If this were a fully funded project, what would be the next step? Obviously, we'd refine, settle on an option, and then go into design.
Yes, yeah, and then we would, then we would,
Commander.
you saying like in a week? Like what would you do
Well,
next?
no, just, no time constraint, just how the process would normally flow in a project like, I'm just trying to figure out what's the next step in moving this project forward.
Yeah, so after that, we would start sort of refining this, so that's not just a block diagram, it's more of a plan. We would start doing some community engagement sessions, start presenting this to the greater public.
Right.
Getting their input, understanding what their priorities are, seeing where the alignment is. And then
exploring options like.
exploring multiple options.
Yeah.
Suggested.
But
Yeah,
you would-
this is-
you would, the next step from a town meeting standpoint, though, would be to fund a project.
No.
No.
This is me now. So.
Yes, please.
What we have funded so far through ARPA
Yep.
is
This work.
Neil and, CMS and Tecton's, we're gonna bring us to town meeting with a number, and then we were gonna go for more design fees. So if you stop this now and said we wanna move it to the fall, you do not have any more
Money.
funding for design, so there has to be something at the spring unless you want to fully wait until the fall to
But
restart.
I guess my question is the design based on picking an option? Or does the design,
So this is what you discussed, I'm sorry, because I was trying to, so you discussed previously, you wanted to bring something solid to town
Mhm.
meeting to say,
Right,
we want to get all this design money. So you wanted an estimate and some basic idea.
right.
Because if you ask for design money, the first question is, this is your words, they're going to ask is, well, what's the project cost and how
Right.
big is it?
yeah, exactly.
So that's the dilemma,
Yep.
is you need more money to explore more options, but you won't have that fidelity of number.
How much was the ARPA funding about?
150.
Right, so instead of the many hundreds of thousands here, could ask for some small amount to kind of keep it going, right?
Yes.
To continue the design development.
This kind of level of
For finding
analysis is the $150,000 level, not the $800,000.
Yeah, it was to get you to a concept.
Right.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we
So maybe
clearly
that's what
don't
we-
have one yet.
But I don't think we want to shut it all off to the point where we can't
Yeah.
get to a
Yeah,
decision.
that's the
Right,
thing. I
because then
think
you
we
can't even
And
get
do
to
we
the
need
fall.
more design work to
to request something at this Springtown meeting? Is that what you're getting to?
no, not-
Yeah.
not for this Springtown
for the,
meeting.
for the fall or even the next spring. I
Right.
think we need to go through more iterations like we've just done here. We need community input, we need to have, more discussion of what is essential and figure out which plan we generally support. And then we kind of, once we get through that, we then take that to town meeting and say, this is what we've come up with. We've had community buy-in, and now we want to raise the money or have the town fund to be able to do the full set of design on that plan. And I think what you're hearing is, we're not there tonight,
Yep.
so we just need a path to kind of get us designing, or not designing and moderating, I don't know.
allow us to get to the answer of what's the preferred option for the community?
Right.
Yeah.
To enough granularity where we could take it to the town and get it funded.
Yeah.
And what would that mean then for the continuation of the work that you would be expecting to do at this point? When does that, how far do we get with the money that we have at the moment?
Is this it?
Well, so
Not quite yet.
not quite it, no. So this
We're
is not
getting
a
close.
conceptual design, but
Okay.
we sort of need direction on an option in order to get to the conceptual design piece. So we
Uh-huh.
can put some more options together like this.
I don't know that we need more options before we go and get.
We also do
uh, public
have
input.
a line item for community outreach, so we
Yeah.
can start
We
engaging in
need the
that.
community outreach before we choose one of those options.
Right.
We need,
Yeah.
so we're missing a step for us.
Well, we also need to give our input.
Right.
True, but,
Right, as a
but it
select-
would be
right, if
helpful
we
to have
want
the
some
community.
different
So we've got the
Yeah.
experts in front of us, we only got a few more minutes, but what did you want to?
I was just exploring where we're at, and, we could continue with the money that's allotted to explore more options and to do more engagement. If you ultimately want a conceptual design that we can put an estimate to, that's solid enough to take to a town meeting, there is the possibility some additional fee would be required to do
Mhm,
that.
mhm.
Nowhere near the full design services, as you pointed out. We could, I don't think we're talking huge dollars here, but
I think we should put together
Proposal to
a
us.
proposal.
Yeah.
Are we inside, have we left a warrant broad enough that we could do that?
It could be changed.
It can still be
We got to
changed.
talk about the structure of the warrant article.
Okay, so we can still change it.
So, I mean,
even though we
potentially
closed the
to ask
warrant.
for a small amount
Yeah.
at the Springtown meeting to continue to
Right.
get to the,
Fall
yeah.
town meeting.
But I thought we closed the warrant, right?
Yeah, but we
did,
haven't,
but
we
we
haven't
haven't
written the
finalized
language.
the warrant.
This is to bring a fire station, so this is the
Okay,
part of
so
the
it's
process.
within, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
consistent with,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay, all right, man.
I
I'm okay
think,
with that.
You have
I
7
think
days.
more time is necessary.
7 days, all right, well.
Yeah, I mean, we're a month from
Late
town meeting,
nights.
basically, and
Right.
we're seeing it for the first time in the
Right.
community. It would be extremely rushed to try to.
Yeah.
We've already made that decision.
We
On
don't
the back of
appreciate how
asking for fire
hard you guys
station.
were working
I know, that's what
with
we-
that idea of getting something ready by Springtown meeting.
We
So
asked
it's
them for
definitely-
that.
I know we did, but I'm just saying,
And if I
Yeah.
put something on the screen the first time in front of you folks, and you said, that's the right solution, you probably didn't study it enough.
Yeah, yeah,
So
right.
that's the wrong approach.
Yeah.
Is to just.
Yeah.
Well, I think then we should turn it back to giving the TA the authority to kind of work a plan together, so to get an estimate, so we could put that on the warrant, is that what we're?
Yeah, the
like-
estimate needed to have them.
To have a
To get to
little-
where we have a conceptual design that we felt we could talk to the town about. Yeah.
Now,
And we do need to start community out, like, if there is
And, yes.
funds to do community outreach,
And there are.
that would be great to start that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's let the town administrator handle that unless you feel otherwise. Or
there's only
whoever
one,
you
there's
have.
one other item in that context. There's an individual who's attending the meeting who made a comment, which has to do with a third-party consultant, like, and we have what our firefighters say they need is a group. We have us, I guess, and citizens at large who have their opinion, but
Well, what about our OPM?
I don't know, are you guys the independent needs consultant, like, to balance everybody's? We can do all this outreach and get all these opinions, but how do we synthesize that?
I help you guys with this a lot, so I
Yeah.
would like to weigh in on this. So if you were to describe what would convince you, then we could get you that expert, but I'm not sure that we can.
That's
It's
official.
really about controlling cost.
Yeah.
So if everybody tells you that to accomplish X goal, it's X, I'm not sure that you'd have to tell me who to bring in.
Well, let's,
Because then you're paying more money for another
Yeah.
person to.
I think, well, I'll just speak for myself and say that, I am just extremely conscious of the amount of money we were hoping to keep this at, the 10 million, and that, and so, when you ask about priorities, I look at the various options that I think none of those three get us to come in around 10 million. It's 10 to 12 here, and if we're not going to start, if we're slowing it down, we're not going to start building till next year. Who knows what the costs are going to be then? And so my inclination is to say, go back to the drawing board and figure out, given the things we've talked about and the importance of some decent, living space. Now, this is just me talking. We have, this is not all of us as a select board saying this, but that's sort of where I feel like I am. I don't feel like any one of those three options is like, hits the sweet spot. Because, we're just under enormous financial pressure here in town with the building project. That's not your fault, but that's what we're, dealing with in town.
Yep, I
So-
think the select board then has to talk about this further, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, we do have
Can't do it
a
tonight.
lot we've got to get
Yeah.
done tonight with the warrant, so we're gonna have to move on, but I think we're gonna have a whole nother meeting, just.
So should we
like-
instruct them to pencils down until we come back to them with?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
thought it was, we needed a proposal for getting us to the fall.
Well, we're
So
not
that
even
we
in
know-
agreement on
So that in
that
the
yet.
spring, we know how much we're going to ask for additional
Well,
design.
why don't we check if
I think our chair is
on
saying
that.
we need to discuss it.
I think we need to discuss it, because Barney, is suggesting certain elements are important to her. There
Yeah.
may be other elements important to other members, so we need to discuss it. We may not get to Springtown meeting with something.
Right.
I would hope we do, but I don't know.
You mean even an ask for continuation of
We may not,
their
but-
Because we
services.
need to know what we're asking for, and we haven't even.
But in terms of their immediate direction, we should probably tell them to just pause till we tell them there is some money left, but they shouldn't spend it till we clarify our own position.
What do you think, Scott?
I don't know, I mean, is it worthwhile getting some community input? Understanding what the priorities are, I mean, it would include us, would include stakeholders that are here on the call tonight. I think it's good to get that perspective, and we're gonna wanna know that perspective.
Yeah,
when
okay,
So
right.
I think that phase is.
I agree.
And I would also like to take this information as input with the finance committee and just start looking at, I know they're looking at different things with different terms, different lengths.
Yeah.
I'd like to model out some of these things, what they look like, so that we can really understand what a 12 million project look like versus a 10 million project, because we really haven't looked at it. Everything we've
In
been,
terms of the expense to the town over time.
everything we've looked at has
Yeah.
been that 10 million plug.
Right,
So,
right.
and it's been a 20-year horizon. So I'd like to look at some of those
Yep.
different
Yes,
alternatives.
I agree with both those.
Okay, the question is, can we get money to do that? If we're gonna have consultants and our, designers do that, we have to go to town meeting, I think. Is
Well,
that
not for
to
that.
get funding?
Well, they have enough money to do
No,
the
we have
outreach
funds
part.
appropriated.
You have funds to
start
do the
the community
outreach. Okay.
So they could do that.
All right,
I
great.
agree.
All right,
Let's
so
throw
then
money
no
at it.
pencils down,
No
we'll
pencils
keep
down.
going the outreach, and is that?
Yeah,
No, it's good.
absolutely. I want the
Gather
outreach.
feedback. We won't
Okay.
do any more options until we've got
Right.
feedback
Yeah.
that
Right.
can
Yeah.
help create guidance.
Right.
Yep,
Okay.
okay.
And that includes your feedback as well as the community.
Can we pause for 1 week?
Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
Can we pause them for 1 week
Sure,
Sure.
what do we
before
recommend?
they start?
Yeah, sure.
My fear is that they're gonna go for community outreach and bring it back, and we're gonna talk about,
What
which
do
I
we
respect
want?
about you, but I don't, but what type of survey should be done, and what type of data should have been gathered, and we really should communicate that before we spend the money.
Right.
Okay,
So we need to talk again.
okay, so back to
Thank you.
it.
Pause for a week.
Okay, I gotta.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you.
very much.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So we've run way over. I appreciate the library trustees are here.
Our terms have ended, we can't.
Okay.
I appreciate you coming, and I'm sorry to keep you waiting, but this is important. All these things are important.
select board meetings.
Yeah, this is like the old thank you. I'm not doing my job.
No, we did a lot of stuff.
No, that's going to be entered into the thing, I think.
Right, she gave a correction of a,
Oh, okay.
to one part, I just want to add this to the file.
two of us together, that goes to the correspondence.
Did you add that into
That's,
correspondence? That is their petition.
She gave us 2 copies.
If the library trustees want to call their meeting to order?
Yes, I know
that's-
Christine told me this is my first joint, so called order 8:42. We are all here, the select board is here. I'm looking at the proposed town administrator bylaw on my phone, so I apologize. I think I'm not.
That's okay, we'll put
Right?
it up, we'll have it up on the screen.
You'll have it up.
Do you have anyone online?
Martha is online. I
No-
can
no
see her,
trustees, though.
But no, it's just the three of us.
Okay, so what we're trying to do in this brief session is just, we had reached out for input from the library trustees. You have been very kind in not only providing that along the way, but now we're having a joint meeting
Yep.
just to get your latest input and feedback.
Yep.
We have tried to make some revisions.
Yes.
And for the public, this is the TA bylaw, the draft, went back to legal counsel, having listened to opinions from the planning board, not the planning board, the chair of the planning board and the chair of the library trustees last time, as well as comments from the vice chair of the Board of Health. We went back, we made some revisions, that's now before us, and we'd love to hear what the library trustees have to say.
Cool, thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting us. We were thrilled to see our name along with the other boards included in the bylaw. And I think our feeling very much is that as long as the policies that we have in place at the library, the town administrator will uphold those, that this is what we wanted. You remove the word day-to-day operations, which we were worried about. So I think we support it. We do.
Good.
Excellent.
Well, that's-
Like,
well, that's-
poor Travis was like, what?
No, but this is a process.
It is a process,
this what
absolutely.
happens
And we're
in-
grateful
in all
for
these-
the whole process.
And we hear feedback and input, and we're trying to make something that works, but at the same time, as far as the policies go, we've tried to make it so clear, we don't want to be involved in policy.
Right.
We're not.
Right.
At least this board, and
It's
I
HR.
just think in the future, boards
Right.
aren't going to be, but we're trying to get HR,
And
HR.
Kate has said that repeatedly
level.
to us. And and we had posted this meeting prior to seeing the revisions, and we just felt like it was important to then come and have on public record, our support on public record.
Great.
That's great.
really
Thank you.
grateful
Yeah.
for that. Yeah.
Great.
Yep, appreciate it
Thank you
very
guys.
much.
We know that it's not easy. It's like trying to make dinner for 5 kids, and everybody wants something different.
Yeah, no, but it's also important to get the language correct in the bylaw, because you know what we're thinking, we know what we're thinking, but 12 years down the line, it
Right.
has to be
Right.
crystal clear
Right.
what this meant, that we
Yeah.
don't have interpretations later, that this
Exactly.
is,
Right.
This is how it is.
Right.
Well, short of that, thank you for
Okay, so
coming.
we adjourn
And you know,
at
you'll be ready to
8:45.
give your
Yeah,
community
right.
input on the fire station, right?
Can you please just beat Travis up for a little bit, just to, I feel like this is a letdown.
Well, it's not beating me up, but I do see the chair of the planning board is on, and I know she had wanted to say something, but this was, I believe, regarding the MBTA communities, but I don't know if you have other further input on the TA bylaw. But Sarah, you're welcome to
I
speak.
have it, we have it on our next agenda for Monday night.
Okay, super.
TA bylaw.
Super. But I know you have some time constraints, and so I wanted to allow you some time. Do you have something you wanted to put forward regarding the MBTA or the consultant? I thought that maybe I had that wrong.
No, not the consultant.
Okay.
Not
Anything
yet.
else
We
that you?
don't. You probably do need that though, so I will text Julie. But I know we do need to get you some information on that. We need to sort of nail down what additional scope of consultant help we think we might need. Julie did procure a fairly significant amount of grant assistance for consultant help on
Thank you for
MBTA.
that.
So, and I actually had wanted to, I thought you might be voting for or against the sort of the citizens petition. So I just wanted the opportunity to, number one, answer questions, and number two, say a little bit of sort of about the process we've been going through, if that would be of interest to the select board.
This would be a good time if you want to take a couple minutes.
Sure. I do not have sharing.
Well, here comes Ryan. He can give you that, I think.
Perfect. And
Sarah
I
wants
also-
to
I'll
share
actually send
something.
Just a quick, we're running early, so no worries. I thought this would be a little bit later. Ryan, do you have the ability to share the slide that I sent today?
Sure.
Or I could.
He's so accommodating. He can take care of it.
I allowed you to share.
Fantastic. All right, so this is just something that we, let's see. Can you see this okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. So this is something that we came up with for our last planning board meeting. Sorry, I just lost all of your faces, and I want to be able to see you when I'm talking to you. So just again, I wanted to make myself available to answer questions if you all had any. We haven't had the opportunity at our planning board meetings. We've had super packed agendas. Our last meetings have gone till 11:30, 12:30 at night. We do have this citizens petition on our upcoming meeting this Monday, so I'm happy to circle back with Travis or all of you after that. But I just wanted to, we also do actually have a set up a meeting today to talk to Wayne Davis, just sort of about the logistics of presenting several different compliance strategies at town meeting and sort of what those logistics might look like. I know other towns have done that, so we wanted to talk through that process with Wayne. And I just wanted to have the opportunity to talk, to respond to a few points that Madeline Blake brought up last week about the fact that the planning board is just going through the motions and has already decided what we're going to suggest for compliance to the town, and that really is not true. We have been engaged in an honest and transparent planning process to consider and evaluate multiple options to solicit opinions from other boards and committees in town. All of these meetings have been in public with opportunity for public comment and questions. And the process has been, this is a process. So we're trying to get all this input. We're trying to develop a matrix of pros and cons for each of the various scenario compliance strategies that we've come up with. We've already met with FinCom, CONSCOM, the Environmental Sustainability Committee, the Fire Chief last week. We're meeting with the Board of Health this week. So this, as you said, this is a process. We've also got the ADU bylaw going on. We are doing our absolute best to address as many questions as we can when they come up, and we actually have a question tracker. Anything that we can't answer, we're trying to get answers to through, town council, who are land use attorneys. We also have some grant-funded consultant input available through Bowler Engineering, Horsley Witten. And so we're really doing our best to get all the answers to present sort of the data that the town needs to make these decisions and come up with some pros and cons. And I think that voting to not force, but strongly suggest to the board to jump over this process and get to a singular conclusion that this group wants, I think would just sort of be subverting the process. And then I think you've all probably been following along this process, but I wanted to give you all the opportunity to ask me questions if you had any.
Is there anyone?
Sarah, just to clarify for me, so the graph that we're looking at now is what you're in the midst of, the first section of it on the left, and then the plan.
We're kind of in the middle of the input from town boards and commissions. So
and
we're
so
kind
the
of like
idea
here.
is this is what you're going to be doing between now and fall town meeting to arrive at what you want to present to the fall town meeting.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I do think that there's a good possibility, and I do think it would be a good idea to present several options to the town.
Yeah, okay.
So again, I can't speak for the whole planning board, but that's what has been driving this process.
Mhm.
And again, as a direct result, and the subcommittee did a lot of work. We have a lot of, facts already on the books. But we did hear the public feedback after the open houses, and this process was developed in direct response to all of that feedback that we heard. And so we are very much listening, and we are, again, we're recording all these questions. We're trying to get answers to as many of them that we can, and we actually have a strategy to sort of track and present answers to those questions. So that's all in the works. We've got a lot of hefty agendas with ADU bylaws too, so we're doing our best. We've doubled the amount of meetings that we had, and I just think we need a little time to let this process play out a little bit more before being sort of, I don't want to say forced, because I know it's not forced. It's an advisory petition, my understanding. But I think it would be a mistake to jump directly to a conclusion before going through the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Well, good, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah, and I'm glad you came on to talk about that, because we did hear last week from kind of one, group and one opinion, so it's nice to hear from the chair of the planning board that, this process.
Great, and thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
appreciate
of course.
the opportunity to speak. I know you all have a lot on your agenda.
We do. All right. Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, have a good night,
All right,
everybody.
thank you.
Thanks.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, Mr. Town Administrator, we are going to cruise through the warrant and get everything agreed to tonight, or else.
Excellent.
So why don't you lead that discussion as far as, I think it makes sense to just kind of go through in the general order that we've been going through, with, starting with the operating budget, and unless you think there's a better approach, whatever you.
Well, the most pressing question tonight is the order. And then I think we should do a rapid round and then see where we're at in terms of details.
And we have to vote, for the town clerk, do we need to do these election ballot questions? Do we have to vote on that tonight, too?
We don't have to vote on it tonight.
Okay.
But that was in there in case we did vote on it, and
Okay.
people want to know.
Okay.
One of the main problems with that is the fire station is now a question.
Yeah,
So-
right. Okay,
Definitely need to vote it by the 15th.
okay.
Well, I'd like to try and get as much as we can tonight, even if
Yeah,
we have to
yeah.
stay a little bit longer to get, get our thing. I mean, well, let's just
Yeah.
plow through this.
Okay.
Some of these, I think, we're in pretty good shape, is my sense of the board, like.
What are we referring, which document should we? be-
Yeah, well, maybe Brian could put it up on the
Is
screen.
it
which
page
I think he's
44,
doing.
the
we
town meeting
talking-
warrant articles?
Cheat sheet, the motions memo,
Are we doing order
Well, you
first?
said order first, right? So you had asked last meeting for Wayne and me to draft that, and I sent that around, and it's in the packet. It's
So
not
is this page 40, that must be page
It's
45, right? The
page-
proposed Yeah, we're looking at the same thing.
Yeah, page 45 is
If you,
our.
if you do the whole
Wayne's on
packet.
the line, so he can, so.
Yeah.
I could present that for you. That's that one, I guess.
Yep.
Is that that one?
I tried to add your numbers to the left, I just
Okay, all right.
didn't quite.
But I mean, it's in the packet. It doesn't matter, whichever way you want to present it.
What's the title of it?
It says proposed FY, it's page 46-5 in the packet. Proposed FY '26 warrant articles, STMWAD rev.
That's what it looks like.
Pink
Well, I
highlights.
don't have it in this
Well,
one.
the pink is artifact from,
Well, but
David, if you want to walk through, or Ryan, whichever, but let's,
you know, I'll tell you, so I can repeat, yeah, everybody. So Wayne and I, well, we took your lead, I think somebody else has had this lead before, of different sort of groupings or buckets, I called them, of articles. And so, in the order in which we've always been looking at it, the top stuff is the consent agenda bucket. The next one is the financial bucket. And then, you know, if you, furthermore, it's a little more mix and match as you go down. There's some, at least in my opinion, and I think Wayne's, there's some significant articles, but that we also don't think will be that long of a debate.
mm-hmm,
Then there are the CPA group, which generally is also like that, kind of substantive, usually not super long. And then you get the tough ones, right? So those are kind of the buckets. So the sequence that we thought we would propose, or we are proposing, is to actually not lead with the consent agenda like we normally do. To actually lead with the 5 articles of 14 through 18, which are the operating budget, the capital plan, the fire truck, the elevator borrow, the library coils. Those are all financial items. And Mark, I know you've proposed to James Cataccio that he actually be the presenter of, I think he usually is the presenter of the operating budget capital plan. So James would do that. Ryan or Brian, I'm not sure who's going to do the fire truck.
The chief,
The chief would.
but I'll stand with him, yeah.
And then Jerry, on the representing the MFC, would do the elevator borrow and library cost. So that would be that first bank of the bucket, you know, the financial bucket. Then we would do the consent agenda, which would be the first 13 articles. And you can see there that Wayne, I think, just drives through those. Now, again, as you know, he'll read them off and people can raise their hand and pull them out if they want. And if they pull them out, they pull them out. But I don't think there's anything particularly controversial there. Then the next, going down, so now we're at 18, and now you want to page down to 19, and what did I do? 19, okay, so 19 and 20 are fire station and police station. It was more, as I mentioned earlier, I was more concerned about which one do you put first before, but I think now, I would say, Wayne is you'd want to get the police station.
Police station,
first.
And then you say, hey, by the way, we're doing this.
yeah.
by the way. Everyone go get a snack.
But it's not a $20 million, by the way, it's a
No.
$100,000, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, and then,
it was never 20.
right, then you get to the ones, again, this is just kind of our opinion, that we think are significant, but hopefully not controversial, and that's the Davis land, the cemetery, and I actually feel the TA bylaw. I know there'll be some people have things to say about it, but, you know, other people will just be like, sure.
That's fine.
Right, okay, so that's sort of that little
Wait,
middle.
you have the TA bylaw at 26.
Yeah, could we
Do
do,
I? Okay, then I
could that
did it
be
wrong.
21 and then,
You have a-
and then do the,
You have appropriations, after amenities. you have
22 is cemetery, okay. I hope I did it right. I did it like 3 times.
Cemetery appropriations, then
Then, yeah,
CPC.
Next time you do this, just put
22.
them in the orders.
Yeah, this is really
just put 'em in the
fun,
order.
weird this way.
well, I was trying to be compatible with.
Yeah.
I know, but
Right.
just,
Okay.
just
but
order it.
I would like to see, honestly, TA
Oh, you know what?
bylaw
I-
before
yeah.
a bunch of these other
What's that?
easier. I would like to see the TA bylaw earlier
Okay.
like earlier than, before 21, let's say.
Okay, all right.
Because I'm afraid people will leave before we get there, and I really want to see this.
And because you've got it coming after the police and fire, right?
Yeah, but like
Yeah.
right after, right? What is it?
Oh, you have,
No, police and fire were,
you have
26,
police
oh,
and
okay.
fire,
This order has it the first thing after CPC.
19 and
Yeah.
20, and then you don't
Okay.
have the PA
That's right.
bylaw
Well,
till
okay, that's-
26.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
so
Again, that's, yeah, okay, you're right. So you'd like to move that to,
TA bylaw 21, and then 21 through the rest moves down one, so
okay, so do you
trails
want
would
it
be
before,
22.
you want it, but you want police station first, right?
Yeah.
Police
Ahead
station,
of fire.
Police and fire,
police and fire, and then TA
and
bylaw.
then
Okay.
yeah,
So TA bylaw would be 22,
19.
and police would be 21,
Right.
and fire station ask would be 20.
No, the
No.
other way around, police station first,
Police station first. Police station's 19,
yeah.
Right.
Then fire's
Fire's
20,
20.
TA
Oh, and
bylaw
TA
is
is
21.
21.
21, okay.
And then trails is 22,
Okay.
Just
yeah.
The Davis CR,
cut
right?
and paste lines.
Well, I got cemetery, I guess, yeah. So you want,
It's
okay.
22. And
Trails
then
is 22, cemetery's 23.
3, yeah.
And then, okay, and there's some, I think Wayne and various people, Barney went back and forth on, I'm confused as to whether the CPC articles are each individual or they.
We're going to try to do the consent agenda
Okay, so.
for all but the
So however that-
amenities buildings.
In this, however that whole little CPC bank is
Yeah,
organized would be the next group.
chunk, okay.
And then finally, now you get to the ADU bylaw, the 2 MBTAs, and the mosquito
petition.
monitoring.
So you think mosquito monitoring will?
You know, mosquito monitoring has a chance to be a lengthy, it depends on how many people are left in the room, but there will be some people who will say that's the camel's nose in the tent, I believe.
Right, it's the
Camel's nose.
nose in the
Yeah.
tent.
Because it's just monitoring.
First step
Yeah,
toward,
step,
right.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of it. I mean, that's the general.
Okay.
Anyone object or have any, I mean, we did talk about moving the TA bylaw, but I think generally that's a good list. Order.
The money ones.
The global, yes.
Well, I mean, we had the last one then as a money one. So I
Well,
guess.
I
the only
didn't,
question-
when I said, I didn't mean money exclusively, but the big budget items.
Big.
The big budget items should go up front, right?
Yeah,
That's
these
always
are
the way.
gotta
small,
pass 'em.
these other
Right.
two.
And then the other things do cost money, but they're not money, they're not,
Well,
like police station is a money thing, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's, and you could say, well, that should go.
what's your cutoff? I mean, it's $40, 40,000?
You know, we didn't, I mean, Wayne, you want to weigh in here? I don't have a.
50.
Where, oh, there he is.
I think, look, you can do anything you want. You've got all the power here on this. Our concept was just sort of the operating and capital budget items go up front,
Yeah.
and then the sort of project-based financial things get scattered through the rest of the warrant, which is traditionally how we've done it. The biggest change is simply to move those operating and capital budget items in front of the consent agenda instead of behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay,
I'm good.
that's all we got. So Ryan, you have enough information to reorder that list then, right?
Hold on.
The one question I have, it's not really about the order though, is when, and it's something, again, I brought this up with FinCom, when they're presenting the operating budget and the capital plan and the lookout and all that stuff, people are gonna wanna know where the fire station, I mean, where the police station fits in, where some of these project-based things fit in. And so is James going to touch on that? And then if so, do we want to have those all in succession of that versus putting like the TA bylaw in there? That's my only question, is how do we give people the financial context for those projects?
It could go, that's a good point. They could go right at the end of the first piece, right in the finance piece.
I think the bigger, especially like the police station, obviously if the fire station had been a bigger project, that would be, but people are gonna need to understand how this impacts the budget down the line.
You see, but typically, do we present a multi-year, or we just?
No, we
present-
don't. It's an open question, of
That's
how
a
do we?
Different question.
Right.
But
We got, it'd be better to give people a bigger context.
Or do you just bake that into that section of it and have
Yeah.
a slide, or maybe someone from FinCom can talk to that piece
Right,
of it?
I mean, right, I haven't thought about it before, but I think it's a good idea. But I would say maybe too much information to absorb all at once. Here's the operating budget, and by the way, here's the
Oh,
next
yeah.
5 years. They're like, okay, this is the operating budget, 3.5%, whatever, blah, blah, blah.
It's part of the
and we do
capital,
this.
it's part of the
Yeah,
capital.
but is the capital gonna show the multi-year thing?
I don't know.
I mean, that's a question. But I would say, no matter what you do there, it would be a good idea in for example, the police station portion itself, to say, if approved, this results in
Yeah.
X dollars a year.
And maybe that's fine to
Yeah.
stand alone.
Yeah.
That's typically how it's been done.
It's a lot to absorb.
Yeah, no, it is.
Multi-year, and how do I mean, people are, I don't know.
Yep. But I mean, I like the order. I don't have any issue with that.
Okay.
Kate, you all set?
All set.
It's-
Okay.
All right.
Well, I think Ryan maybe is working on this a little bit, or no? I jumped the gun.
I'm just trying to follow.
Okay.
Got it.
Did you keep track and?
Yes.
So we're gonna leave the way we just did
Broadly
earlier.
speaking,
We're
broadly
Broadly
speaking,
speaking, we're
yeah.
leaving the,
So
yeah.
I got the 5 finance, and then the consent agenda. Then we go to police station, fire station, TA bylaw, Davis land,
That's okay.
cemetery, all the CPA, MBTA consultant.
Well, then that's a question of ordering as well. You've got the planning board's MBTA, you've got the
Yes.
And the
Tom Bellotti
ADU
Group's
is on here, right? Yeah.
article. And then you got ADU, which is also
Right.
gonna be a non-trivial event.
So I have MBTA consultant, MBTA communities citizens petition, ADU bylaw,
And mosquito monitoring.
mosquito monitoring.
Yeah.
So does the citizens petition, to your point, does that follow?
The MBTA or not?
I guess, I mean, I don't know, I thought Tom was gonna stick around to talk about it.
I guess they're related, but they're not contingent on one another.
No, right.
So the outcome of the consultant doesn't impact the request of the citizens petition. Either way, you're gonna be
Right.
presenting recommendations.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my feeling is it's appropriate for the official planning board one to.
Sure.
Come first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
then
think
the
that's right.
citizens can,
They have the last say, the
yeah,
last.
right. So I'd be okay with that.
Okay. Good.
All right, this was helpful in FinCom, so hopefully, let's do rapid round.
Okay.
So this is your, will you or will you not
Is
recommend?
this the updated
This is-
order?
Well, you can go in now, it doesn't matter
It
now,
doesn't
you can
matter.
just go in the order,
Okay.
Okay, which one are we gonna look at? The
just start line one and go.
So I'm gonna say it.
He's gonna go right off this.
If you're gonna
Right
hold.
off of this
We get
one.
buzzers?
Oh, yeah.
So the consent agenda includes the agenda itself, the town reports, elected folks' salaries, the OPEB actuary study, Chapter 90 spending, PEG spending, revolving fund limits, the wage and class plan, the tailings article from the treasurer, the hero tax abatement, the prudent investment law from the treasurer, and the increase in demand fees. The only one that the FinCom didn't recommend yet that they've held is the prudent investment law. They want to hear from Bartholomew as a board, which is our financial advisor.
Why is Veterans Hero Act abatement in there twice?
So originally, we said it was going to need to be 2 articles. Town council says it only needs to be 1. So we are cutting 1 out, but I didn't want to change the numbering in order.
So one goes away.
One goes away.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and then I should know the answer to this, but PEG 150 increase for police That means to outfit the community room of the police station.
Yep. So we want to make sure there's enough to use as much as we can.
Okay. And somebody could say, well, we haven't voted the police station yet, or no, that wouldn't be a thing, right?
So that's just to say how much we can spend, it's not to say how much we will spend. So if we don't spend it, then that just goes back to Peg.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more discussion on any of those, or are you ready to recommend them?
Ready?
I'm ready.
Ready?
Okay.
Do you need a motion?
Do each article, or
That's consent, we should do it all, unless you raise your hand.
do we want to
and
hold,
object.
well, if FinCom's holding on one, do we want to hold on one? Do you want to just?
I just wanted to clarify, Ryan, the PEG was for just the police station, or just, or, no, it's all of the,
It pays Sean,
yep,
all of the
okay.
MMN staff
Yeah,
and everyone.
Because the police was
But we're
only like
getting more-
30,000
yeah.
of that or something.
We're hoping it's 50. but
50,
We
okay.
told you it's 25 so far.
Okay, all right. Yep,
Okay.
so,
Well, so.
All right.
Do
So-
we have to go through each one, or can we?
No, the
well,
consent.
no.
I guess the
because
question is the
This
investment.
is the rapid
The
round.
But the prudent investment law, you're
So we
saying,
don't-
Scott,
we're
maybe
not-
hold it
I'm
out?
good with it.
Okay, I'm good with it.
So we're not voting yet, we're just seeing if anything needs more discussion or you're ready, and then we'll vote.
Okay.
Okay, any more discussion on the operating budget as presented at last meeting?
No, no,
Capital plan as presented last meeting?
Nope.
no,
Fire truck borrow?
Nope.
no,
Elevator borrow?
no,
Nope.
Library corals borrow?
no.
Okay, we're through the financials. TA bylaw.
Hold.
But I
Well, we're
missed a
ready.
little bit
Yeah, I
of
guess we
this. Are
should-
we gonna amend the language a little based on what they recommend?
Well, we have a
No, we
revised
have.
version
We
in our
have.
packet,
So-
which is what
Okay.
they were saying.
We, this is the rapid round, so we're not gonna talk about it, but
Okay.
we're gonna come back and talk
All
about
right,
it.
so hold.
Hold is a hold, all right.
No, I was joking.
Any CPs?
We can,
So you're gonna write in there that you recommend it or not? I'm not sure that you know what you're recommending yet. So I
On the
would say that
TA
you're gonna
bylaw?
make your
He's
recommendation.
into.
Oh, sorry. What are you on now?
Okay, so for the warrant just says whether or not you recommend that
yeah,
article.
yeah.
Yeah.
But the TA bylaw does not appear in the warrant because you're not done with it yet. So I wouldn't recommend
You
it
shouldn't
until.
it doesn't look good to recommend
Yep.
when you have it, right?
You're pre-recommending something that doesn't exist yet.
Yep.
When you say it doesn't exist because we haven't
Finalized.
finalized the language, you mean?
Correct. We're gonna have another discussion
Well, we-
about it,
Okay.
which
Yeah.
may be that we agree to it, but we're still
We
gonna
gotta
talk
do that
about it. So
first.
that's
And
why
then-
we're voting.
Okay.
That's
We're
why
in
we're
lightning
voting.
round.
Okay,
Lightning
all
round,
right,
lightning
sorry,
round.
So by the
sorry.
rules of rapid round, we continue.
Okay.
All the CPC articles.
Yes.
Yeah, I see no reason not to.
Yes.
I would say yes.
Sorry, we get
Yes.
guess. Okay. All right, straw poll says yes to all CPC. The Davis land transfer.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. The ADU bylaw, are you ready to recommend it?
We haven't seen
No.
that yet.
Hold.
Hold.
The MBTA consultant funds.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, this citizens petition, are you ready to recommend it?
No,
No.
hold for me.
Okay, fire station design.
Hold.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh, sorry. Mosquito monitoring, 15,000.
Yes.
Yes. Everyone,
Yep. Yeah,
Okay,
if you can hold. If you
frankly.
the police
Scarlett.
station.
Yes.
Why don't
Police
we-
station, yes.
So
Police
the-
station.
So the warrant article will say you're going to ask for something. It's
Yes.
not gonna say the number. So you're ready to ask for something.
We are,
Yes.
absolutely. I
And then-
thought we determined.
And then the cemetery improvements.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so it looks like, for discussion purposes, you're down to TA bylaw, and this can change, right? This is just straw poll. ADU bylaw, the citizens petition, and the fire station.
Mhm.
All right, so let me show you the warrant.
We can get out of here early?
Wrong category, man. No, but this is great. This is great.
Careful.
Somehow I don't.
Careful.
Yeah, don't, I was gonna say, don't count your
I know, you shouldn't have said
So
that.
ignore the order, but
Work
the,
expands to
Yeah,
fill
okay.
the time allowed, don't you
Of
know
course.
so the details of the elected salaries are here, they've been described to you.
And we don't, do we have this in our packet?
This, I'm just showing this to
This
you.
one? No? Okay, this is the first time, all right.
Okay.
So the salary and compensation plan is based off of 25% COLA, wow, that'd be
Huh.
great. 2.5% COLA.
Right.
And all the positions that exist,
This is more or less boilerplate.
yes. Okay, the prudent investment law, rule. FinCom wanted to know more about what the treasurer could invest in, or it's really our advisors, because our advisors help the treasurer invest. So Bartholomew's going to the FinCom to talk to them. I'm not speaking for the FinCom, but there was one objection. There has been no vote to hold it or to not recommend it. They just want more information.
But I would point out, and Mark is on the line. Mark, didn't we hear from, we learned about that, you and I did, right? Mark Bernstein.
Yeah, this is Mark from the FinCom, Mark Bernstein. Yeah, but there was, as Ryan said, there was one person who personally wanted to hear more information before, FinCom would make its recommendation, and James agreed to get more info.
Okay.
It'll be fine, I
Yeah.
believe.
Okay.
Okay, town council said, we were going back and forth, but the demand fees increase has to go to town meeting, so you don't need to know that, but you should know that. The HERO Act needs more, what we're trying to do here is peg the veteran exemption to COLA. So the only thing I have left with town council is to make sure this doesn't peg all of the exemptions to COLA, because that's not what we discussed or what was submitted, so.
Yeah.
You might see that language change, but it's only for that purpose. This is the removal of that HERO Act article.
Yeah.
They said it would conflict with one you've already passed, so don't do it, so. We listened to council mostly. Okay, the budget, capital, The police station, so this is the language that we talked about earlier.
Additional funding.
So vote to amend the prior appropriation authorized by Article 13 of the annual town meeting, which was last year's vote. So
Yes.
this vote would amend it to a new number.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, the number is not set.
Right.
Do you want me in the summary to include a number, or do you want to still talk about it?
I'm good with the number.
So
What number?
you
The
good with
one that we ended up with.
The 668,000
Yeah, the-
extra?
I mean, if you want to throw that chart up, if you still have it. But it's the 3 add alts, whatever, and the 500,000 contingency.
Is it right, the 12% contingency?
Well, it ends up, yeah, well,
Being
it's more like the
511, I think it was.
15 on the
Over on
base.
the whole,
yeah.
right,
Yeah.
or the base, right.
Sorry, I got a few charts up here.
I mean, since we broke the 4 million barrier, I was trying to hold us
Yeah.
to 4
Yeah.
last, but now we've broken it,
Well-
4.1, 4.2.
You'll be lucky if you stick at that at this point.
We're gonna fly in our French program manager to deal with that.
I mean, my kid works for a design build firm, and they've had a couple of contracts canceled now.
Well, that's right.
Right.
And,
Canadian lumber, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
They were told, get your
Well,
orders
that's
in.
why, well, you need the contingency, right, so.
So that's.
So is your argument, Kate, that we should just ask for more?
Well, I guess as long as you're asking for this much, I think you should ask. I mean, I'm just really worried.
Yeah, it's not real you're asking for extra contingency.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
not,
Yeah,
We make it 600 then.
you know, whatever the number was we agreed to, like,
Well,
Right.
no, but
That's fine.
it's been crept up, right, so,
yep.
again, Neil said 3 to 3 something. Then there was talk about 12%, which is this
I looked it
450.
up. So Neil
Then,
said 375 and 450.
What's his name?
Scott.
Scott,
Did you hear what Ryan said?
sorry.
So I looked it up in Neil's email. It's 375 to 450 is what he said.
Now, but before he had a lower, it doesn't matter. But now, Scott, his guy, said he's more comfortable with 500.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay, and
Well-
then should it be 600 based on, Trump tariffs and who knows what, I don't know.
Okay, so there's a few calculations here. So there's construction cost, whether or not to include this revenue. and then what the contingency should be. So
But
should
you
just-
said the revenue, the rebates you're talking about is a slam dunk, right? We've already applied for them and we'll get them?
We should get those, yeah,
Right,
we have a
so
letter
I-
from the state.
I mean,
I almost wonder if you shouldn't
throw that in there.
take
Contingency.
those out and.
And just have them as extra
and
contingency.
As them as extra contingency.
Yeah. Yeah, but add, you know, so why not just go
That's
to
80.
4.3
That's
mil?
83,000 more?
Well,
And just go to 4.3.
Yeah, it's 83,000.
This is it.
This is it. You can not reelect Kate if the.
Yes, it's all
Good luck
Kate's fault.
chasing
You can
us.
say it's all
Right.
Kate's fault.
We've sent her to France.
Yeah. Exiles are
Expelled
from
her
France.
from the country.
Yeah. Well,
So
I
do
right
you
mean,
now,
think,
what
Ryan?
we're asking is, in the summary in the warrant book, it'll say a number or not. So you can
Right.
continue to discuss this number and not put a number in the
But then you're
warrant.
saying we can't recommend if we don't have a number?
You can. So
Yeah.
you're recommending that something's gonna happen.
Hey, you know, then do that, There's no
I'd
point.
keep it, yeah, I'd keep it, because
Keep
who
it-
knows
who
what
knows what's
happens
gonna happen.
Keep
in
it
1
loosey
month,
goosey.
we could be in
Exactly.
a different
Right,
boat.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
All right,
so-
we're good with that, yes.
Do you want to say in the summary that it's about 4.2 million, or do you
No.
wanna just leave that?
Nah, probably.
No,
Just say it's
because
gonna be
Wayne
X.
said we only get a 5% variance on, not that we're gonna.
So that's the difference between the summary and the warrant article. Let me show you what I'm talking about.
I know,
Right.
but
The warrant, you
I
can say
think it's better
stuff.
not to say a number in case it's wildly different, because then you're stuck.
But the warrant makes clear we're gonna ask for more money.
I would
Yeah.
rather, I know it sounds so nice to have a nice round number.
Yeah.
I actually think you should have a little bit of, little,
Not round numbers.
Not
Make it
a
look
round-
like we really pencil whipped it.
there's some logic to that. There are
Right.
some
Well, you could argue both
human
ways.
studies that show
I know.
that that's effective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, fair
All
enough.
right, what do we have here?
All right, so
Well,
no,
this is the
no
summary.
number.
Do the math.
No
Okay.
number.
Do the calculation, put the number.
Why gas is $2.99.
No, that's the rule of nine,
But
so
on
it's a
the
completely
summary,
different.
Ryan,
That's right, you're right.
Does it give
Trainer would be
some
Very exact.
explanation for the increase?
Yes, I will explain.
Okay,
That the increase is mostly contingent, that's what we just talked about.
Yep.
okay,
Mostly
but that's what
contingency.
that summary will
But
explain.
I'm not gonna use a number, I'm just gonna say
Right.
there will be a
Right,
increase to last year's vote
Yeah.
based off these factors.
yeah.
All right, we gotta talk for a minute about the fire engine. Not the fire engine, you guys already talked about that. So here's the fire engine. So last year you did do, this is excluded debt, but you're not gonna do, the additional is excluded debt because of the impact on the ballot. So they just said to vote it a new warrant article, don't amend the old one. Just explaining to you what town council said.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't really impact you, but you should know.
So if it's a new article, then it is excluded then? Or you mean the article's just the delta?
The article is the delta,
Okay, fair enough.
not an amendment.
Yep, I got it.
The elevator, we don't know the sum of money yet because it's out to bid. So we put a sum of money, which is legalese.
Okay.
Wow, we've got a lot of these.
Library heating and cooling, we did put in the number because that is based off an estimate and it has contingency in it.
Okay.
Right, this is one we have to talk about, fire station renovation.
Yeah.
So you had previously said you were gonna do everything but build the fire station, and you were gonna debt exclude that cost of that design.
Yeah.
So if you're not doing that now, that cost of that design has to come from somewhere. If you don't debt exclude it, it has to be either free cash or borrowing.
Right.
Meaning, you were saying that these costs are up and above of what you already have for an impact of the budget.
Yeah, yeah.
If you don't do that, then it has to come from somewhere, either your reserves or future borrowing.
How
Do we
much
have a
over the,
sen- yeah.
how much over the 12% are we?
0.79%.
What is that in money?
Yeah.
And
Not
what do you-
enough.
What do you think that going forward, we have the design funds, or I mean, the public outreach funds already?
1.79 of a $35 million bill, it's not enough.
What else are we gonna spend on between now and potentially the fall town meeting, getting the information we need from our design team? How much is that? Is it $50,000 or is it $250,000?
So 0.79 is $276,000. Isn't that enough pin money for them to do whatever they
How
want?
much?
276, you said?
Plenty. I would
Yeah.
think if we
I
can't,
think we're gonna
I
get
think,
100,000 or something.
yeah, well, but let's just kind of map it out. We want to have community outreach, we're going to go back, we're going to get feedback, we're going to probably do another schematic plan,
Yep.
but that can't be that extensive.
Well, they did all what they did so
Well-
far for $1.50, right, so.
Yeah, but they had to measure the station, they've
Yeah, right,
done
so
all
there's
that
lots to do.
stuff,
Right,
so
no,
they're
yeah,
just
that's
gonna come
exactly
back
right.
with a schematic or a, you know.
But they were going to give us a number, and then we
yeah.
stopped them, right?
Well, we have to
So
give them a
we-
SAL. We need to give them a SAL, statement of work.
So you should really start with what do you want
Right.
to bring to fall town meeting?
Right.
What are you trying to bring?
We think 2 options, or no, 1 option or
One
2?
option.
One.
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 one option,
We
that-
do a lot of community outreach and figure out, and
Figure
narrow
out
it down
what the
to one
community,
thing.
if they
What option
want
they
to
do
do
this.
something bigger,
Right.
something
Right.
smaller.
Okay.
If
Yeah, how
money
much-
is the limiting factor
Right, so we-
versus the,
Right, so we
Right.
want them to bring a final cost estimate based on a,
Yeah, like we would have done, like the way they mathed it out for this.
right?
670,000 or whatever it was, right? That was pretty specific. We're gonna do these things. You're gonna have a set of CDs and up you
Right.
go, right? So
Right.
that seems like the right approach. It's just we're not ready for the baseline assumption. Which reminds me, just as I was listening, in community outreach, because it tends to be very, focused on needs and trades, but the community, where they could be the most valuable is if in that survey or in that
Mhm.
outreach, they get an understanding of the impact on the tax bill of a
Yes.
$10 million, a
Yes.
$15 million.
That's what's good.
Because that's what
Yes.
they really can weigh
That's
in
all
on.
they care about,
Well,
really.
but also, I didn't want to say this,
No.
but
Yeah.
also, there are not too many people that are gonna know anything about what the fire station should or shouldn't have in it. I mean, they can give an opinion about whether it sounds good to have
Well-
more living space, but.
Yeah, but I mean, I
right?
think there's
But
enough.
I think your point about the tax
Right,
increase.
but there is actually in their presentation, it's pretty good, actually, and there's not enough, there is enough information to say, like that one chart that would say, like, in these different, and you wouldn't do maybe the high one, but let's just say it's 2 options, or
Uh-huh.
or 3 different options.
Right.
But based on what the firefighters said they need, this is how this addresses that, right? You could tell people that.
Yeah.
They don't have to be
Yeah.
fire experts. They're like,
Right.
okay, the guys who are fighting the fires say they need X, Y, and Z. And these are the options, and this is how well they accomplish those options. Then you say, okay, we thought 10 million was affordable. Turns out, gee, that's gonna be like 12. So this option, and then this other option, and this is what your tax bill looks like for the next 10 years or whatever, if we do those things. That's where they can say, gee, okay, I think people can
To me,
correlate those two.
this town goals from the
Yeah, that
RFQ
thing,
thing.
that one,
Where
exactly
it
right.
says, this one is only good, this is good 30 to 50 years, this one's only
Right.
good for 5 years. So do you want to spend 10 to 12 million
Right.
for something that's only good for 5 years?
But
Or do you
that's-
think you want to do 14 to
Right,
16
But that's a
for
little bit
50
of
to
fear, that
25?
one point
Yeah,
is a little bit of fear mongering.
Well, I don't know.
That's why I said my upsell comment.
Community outreach, they've done this, they know, I think that we could probably see what their standard outreach tools are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know if they've overlaid the piece about how much it's gonna cost you a tax bill.
Yeah.
And Lexington is a very different town, let's
Well-
just say, and the towns like that are very.
And that fire station that was in the original proposal was $17 million.
Yeah, but it didn't cost that, right?
That's what they said it cost in their,
When was it, 8 years ago or something?
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so
Okay.
looking at costs, this does not include an OPM.
Yep.
So 70,000 is what you were gonna get to go to town meeting with, which was a very nice napkin.
Okay.
Napkin
Yeah.
drawing. Okay, so for a schematic design, it's going to be another 140-ish.
Yeah, but when they say schematic, that's a pretty detailed thing, Brian. That's
Right, so
way
I'm
more than the block diagram.
So I'm showing, all right, so the overall I'm trying to give you some scope here. So
Yeah.
if the project is, let's say 12 million, then you can expect the design to be somewhere around $1 million.
Right.
So this pieces it out for you what that would be, and then you have to add the OPM costs. So a schematic design, you're gonna go to town meeting, you're gonna say, we think this is gonna be about 12 million. And then when you design it, that could change a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Because you actually have to do the design. Or you could go all the way through construction documents and bidding, which you're not ready for, but that gets you to 700. So really what you're spending is for the fidelity of the number. How close do you want to be to the actual number? So if you say we'll do another 70,000, then you're going to get a very rough estimate.
Right, so I think, at least from my view, we are repeating this step because we didn't find their analysis was incomplete. It didn't have the community, I mean, maybe it's just timing, but it didn't have the community piece. We didn't coalesce around a design, and now we're presented with a more expensive set of scenarios than we thought originally. So for those reasons, we kind of just have to cycle back through another, 70 or 100,000 to get us to a point where we can say we really like that design. You've done your homework. This is going to be in August, and we're ready to now give us this menu for this design, and we'll go to a fall town meeting or whatever with that ask.
Yeah.
It's what I'm trying to say, and not well, but is how strong do you want that initial design to be? Because once you get to November, then they have to do construction documents. You're not gonna get a good number until February, March, and then we're gonna be back in the same boat. So if you spend more design money now,
You get further.
you're gonna get further.
But it's,
But we don't know what we're spending.
we don't know what we're spending.
We need to get to maybe the level of detail that they had today, but a design
That we like.
that we and the community and the fire are in general agreement about and can get on the same
I
page
agree
about.
with that, yeah.
So
We don't need a detailed design, we just need enough to say, and we think it's gonna be 14 to whatever, 10 to 14 or whatever it is as a range. That's what we need.
But the community supports this level
Yes,
versus
right.
this level, or
And
whatever it
what's
is.
the ask in the fall or
That's-
whatever,
that's
maybe
what
it's.
we're trying to get to.
Yeah.
Maybe it's another,
Yeah.
whatever, 100,000 to get more, a detailed number
To get to the
for
point where you can
Springtown
get to
meeting, I
quotes.
don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So using their language, I think what you need is a schematic design. So use their numbers here, 140, plus some testing and some site work to make sure you're not gonna run into anything crazy. So that's the 46,000 down there. And then you're gonna add 50 for the OPM, so you're looking at about 300.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think
Go
that's
up,
what we're
can
saying.
you scroll up a little bit, please, Ryan? I want to see what's in the 70. So, space, they've kind of done phase 1A, we want them to redo 1C. So,
And we're gonna finish 1E.
and 1E, but they have a little money. So let's say that's 50,000 for them to redo phase 1. And then in phase 2, you seem to think we need schematics. I'm not clear on
But
that.
phase 2, we were gonna go to the town once we had phase 1 done. We
Yeah.
don't have phase 1 done.
I
So I
wouldn't-
think, I
yeah.
think what we're thinking is we're gonna redo elements of phase 1. So we don't need to, well, we may need to shore up space needs assessment, just to,
Yeah.
finalize, get
Well, give
good
'em another
buy-in.
70.
Conceptual design, like say, okay, we're gonna coalesce around this design, and then come up with an estimate. And then we'll go, if we
Yeah.
do that by fall town meeting, we'll go to fall town meeting, then ask for the money for phase 2 at the
Right.
fall town meeting.
Right, that's what I think.
That's what we're trying to do.
I don't think we want to go into the spring after we just said, well, police is going to cost 4 point something. And somebody raises their hand and said, and we asked for, what you said, 350 or something. They're like, well, what are we building? And we're like, I don't know yet. That's not a good answer to that.
No, no.
One of the things we've learned, though, is that we were hoping to keep this project at 10 million, and that was not a reasonable expectation. I
Well,
think that's what we've been told.
I don't know. In listening to Barney, you had some insightful questions tonight, and your questions were more, does the public want to keep within 10 million? And if they do, is there a way to do that? And maybe, maybe there isn't, and that's what Kate's saying, but I don't know. I don't want you to be, your thoughts on that.
Well, I just, we've had that 10 million out there. We went through the whole
Right, everybody
process,
said, "Yeah, yeah,
last
we
year,
can
and
do
we
it," right.
set that 10 million, right? So, and that was higher than we originally had been talking about.
Yeah, but time has been going on through
Yeah.
that 6%,
But we're also,
inflation.
if you look at the towns that did it for cheap, like John had cited Ashland, but there's other ones when we went through all the studies, we saw them, right, modulars and
Yeah,
this and that.
yeah. They don't
Towns do it
last.
for cheap.
Yeah.
Do they or don't they?
Well, the question
We
is
have,
how long
we
is
don't
it gonna-
have Western mass mentality, like, just get it done cheap and
Yeah,
we'll live with
yeah,
it. But
yeah.
Yankee mentality, right?
Yeah,
Do what I gotta do to go to the next thing. We're like in that, this is more of a philosophical thing, but we're in that middle space where we're kind of prudent, type of the buck, but we're also like playing with the, Wellesleys and the bigger rich
yeah,
Concord, right?
yeah.
We're playing with the richer towns and we're drinking the Kool-Aid. And I don't mean this in a deprecating way, because our on-call department and they do an incredible job.
right.
But that's what they're about, right? I need this, I need this, I need this. And there are many, many towns that say, sorry,
Yeah,
we can't do it. And
Yeah.
we gotta resolve in our mind where we sit in that matrix, right? Really.
I do think, though, we need the support of the community, and we haven't really asked.
We haven't
We've
really
been
asked.
sitting here
Right.
making these decisions,
exactly.
and we've really never asked them.
Right, and that's what
What
we
do
need
you
to do.
think? And
I
this
totally
is-
agree, I totally agree.
yeah.
So maybe it's 100,000, maybe it's redo phase one and some more money to do a very thorough.
Definitely the outreach, I think.
Outreach and
I think
leave it at that.
showing people things like this and getting their reactions to
Right.
this would be that.
And that will
questionnaire,
take-
I would say
schmissionaire.
finish phase one. Phase one isn't done yet. They
Right.
haven't done the community input, so how can you have final
Yeah.
conceptual designs when you haven't even, you've only talked to the,
But I might say a little different, yes, I guess, yes, I
Yeah,
guess.
I agree.
I mean, what, was the idea that they would talk to fire, have 3 concepts, and we pick one and then get community input?
Yeah, no,
Well,
no,
no, but it
that's
might
not-
be, as I'm listening to you, it might be an iterative thing.
Yeah. let's-
You go to community output to help you refine the options.
And we have some
Then you go
time to.
back to the community with this, okay, here's what we boil down to, and here's what, like, the cost look like. What do you think about those trades, right?
I don't think we need schematic, though. I think we
No,
just
we don't
need
need
some
schematic.
time
We
to
don't
kind
need
of.
schematic.
I think what I was not articulating well again is, it's 4.5 months. I think what you're talking about is gonna be done by July, and you're gonna wish that you had,
No.
More.
you could go farther.
It won't, this
Uh-huh.
is summertime and no. It will take.
And then if you add 10% to the cost of the project, you're gonna wish you'd gone farther. That's what I'm saying.
But the 10%,
It's
I'm
always
assuming
gonna-
we're gonna add 40% by the time it actually comes to
Yeah.
any.
It's not gonna be anytime soon anyways.
But what do we, yeah, but that means in a month, we're asking for $400,000 for what? I mean, if I were in the audience, I'd be like, you're just spending more money on studies and concepts, like, get out of here. I'd rather just do a little bit more and get to a point where you actually have a plan, and then maybe you ask for the 250,000 to get you to Springtown meeting so you can have the number. And it's a year late, but it's a year. I mean, we gotta get this right.
One thing that Ryan did at a past town meeting at the beginning, remember, he talked about the things that are coming up and that he wanted people to be aware. It would be really neat to, if you've got this audience, to be able to say, by the way, one of the big things that we're really looking at down the road is the fire station. And here are, even a micro presentation of what we just saw, but, here are different concepts, and we need your input. And,
Right. Yeah.
get the town engaged somehow going forward.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah.
that, yeah.
My concern with the whole project is everything that firefighters prize and rank highly is no
The space.
a benefit to the public. I think most people are just gonna, they support the fire department, they wanna stay on call, I think, as do we, and they wanna keep the cost as low as possible but you're not gonna see any kind of service improvement or.
No, but I don't think people are looking for service, like the police station too, they're not looking for service improvement.
It's gonna be, people aren't expecting a $10 million fire station though, they're not.
What do you think they're expecting?
A few million, 4 million, 5
Like a
million.
rental, like the
Yeah.
police station.
I don't think people who haven't been engaged with this, when they hear,
I guess we'll find out.
but that's why we have to
That's
work
why-
up to it.
That's why I think this presentation, just this exact same, almost exact same presentation, needs to be given to the public, and you find out what their appetite is for this whole thing.
And we need to look at what that looks like for the tax bill.
I agree.
Yes.
That's an important part.
Yes.
Because 16 million is probably, your spreadsheet was already at 570 increase for the fire station project at the peak. Bump that
Well,
up.
I mean, I would
It's like
just.
900 now.
Well, the most relevant metric to
On
me
a
is
20-year, yeah.
we had a $3 million, essentially, police station design. We've changed it almost none from a design standpoint, and it's now 4 million. So
Yeah.
I would say, and that was during an inflationary period, and we're in another one. So 25% higher than whatever number we think is probably, or 33%, whatever the math is, I think we can expect. Like, if we park it at 12, it's really gonna be 16 by the time we're done.
I guess I still want to know how many years is this, because, if it's really indeed only going to last you 5 years,
Well, that's,
well, 10
Yeah,
years.
that's,
not that it
I mean,
won't
why
last,
would you,
Kate.
I mean,
why
it'll
would you even
last, but-
present an option that's only gonna last 5 years?
Well, so the question,
Model.
how do we get that information about how long, because you don't want to
Well, now
bond
you get
something
to
for
the
30
third-party
years
consultant.
that's only really going to be
But then
useful.
it's the whole call versus career.
Well, that's, so if you have to switch to career, what they're saying, in 5 years, then this building, that the newly designed $10 million thing would not serve that purpose.
No, and imagine what the operating budget would look like.
Well, there's that.
Like,
So that, I mean, one of the arguments
Then
is,
you go to regionalization.
if you're spending $3
Regionalization.
million a year for a professional fire department, that is
Yep.
there's a payback for that 15 million then, instead of 10 million.
The real question
that-
would be, if you don't go to call, how do you convert it to a substation? Because if you,
Right, I agree
because
with
if
you.
you don't go call and we go career, we would have to regionalize.
Yeah, that's
And then this would become not the
Would be a
main.
substation,
This
right.
would be a
Yes.
substation.
Well, it would still need a lot of renovation for a substation.
Yeah, no, granted,
So-
but that's what we
so-
should be talking about.
So that means you're throwing more money after it, and you've bonded this thing for 15 years, and it hasn't lasted you, so now you have to, I don't think it's smart
No.
policy to bond something for longer than it's gonna be used for.
Yeah,
Those
That's all I'm saying.
are all good reasons to.
We've got a lot to,
Let's
See, you said we were ahead of schedule.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to keep you on.
But, all right, so what do you need, Ryan?
All right, so it sounds like something around 100,000 free
That's
cash.
what I think, yeah.
Yep.
But where does that, and we have that in our,
We can do, yeah.
we can shave off from our reserve, we have that.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
And we'll just monitor it as we go. We only pay as we go with these
Right, right,
consultants,
yeah.
right?
So does that
And
need
that needs to go to FinCom though, too.
Does it need to go to town?
No, not if
meeting?
it's
Take
approved
the-
out of free
Authorize that
cash.
free cash?
It's approved out of free cash.
Okay.
They would just need to
Well,
slightly
we're
adjust
getting it
their
though from, right, but we're lowering the
Yeah.
percentage of our,
We're still above the
reserves.
12 though.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, all right,
Okay.
let's move on.
Move on.
So, TA bylaw, what's needed here is your language of the summary, which council has been writing, following your edits.
Well, just to, Travis, just because I stepped out, so we did a little edit last week, which
Yeah.
we gave to them, but they had some more edits, right? Or
No.
They didn't.
No, they looked at what the
They were
draft
okay
that
once
was
you
in our,
clarified.
remember, we put in our
They
packet,
being who?
that is the latest
Library.
version. The latest version.
I thought in the back and forth of the emails was like,
day to day.
yeah,
That was
well, we
already
took
out of there.
day
We
to day
just
out. No,
took
but
that.
human
And
resources.
you put in-
There are no changes from
Good,
what
that's
they
all I
did.
need.
So,
Good. So I think
the
we're good.
draft we have is what, unless we felt there was more to
Right.
discuss, but I frankly think
think it's
we've
good.
really done our
Yeah.
outreach, and we've taken in feedback, and
Yeah,
we've
I
amended
agree
it.
with you. I
And
agree
I
with you.
think we have something that we should take to town
Right.
meeting.
And that's the one in the latest packet.
Correct.
Yes.
Now, it
I know
needs
that-
to be,
No, but
the
the
changes take
school
time.
committee wants
Cleaned
the
up,
latest draft.
That's it.
So I will send that.
Yep.
And I will go and
Okay.
answer
So
questions.
do we want to just vote it now, or do you want to wait, because it's school and planning, right? They still have it.
I don't,
We should send it also to planning board, right?
I don't think
I
schools,
actually
school's not gonna
think
have any
that we-
edits.
I would like to wait You know, I mean,
Yeah.
I
There's no
know,
reason to
I have a
get- we can
sense
make-
that the select board will, will support this
Yes.
unanimously, but I just think it's appropriate to
I agree,
wait.
I agree with you, let's move on,
Yes.
yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What else
Okay.
you got, Ryan?
Okay. MBTA, done.
Old.
Board of Health, done.
Wait, which one? No,
Which MBTA was it?
Oh, no.
The
Sorry, I'm thinking
consultant?
ADU.
Consultant, yes,
Yeah.
Sorry.
okay, sorry.
Board of
By the way,
Health.
though, I think we should, it was a little confusing that Sarah was saying she wasn't sure what the consultant was doing, because we'd also already gotten some other money. So it'd be good to get an explanation.
Well, it's for them to clarify, right? They're the ones who are
Yeah.
asking.
I mean, maybe, just whoever makes the presentation on it needs to be clear.
So at town meeting, they can always say, scratch it,
Yeah.
but you can't add it. So this is.
Julie's
No.
gonna present.
Yeah,
She knows
no,
what
I'm
she's
just saying, it was, anyway.
I think what
that's
Sarah
fine.
was saying is that they're looking for grant money and would use that if they got it instead
Instead
of
of the-
this
okay.
article. I think that's what she was saying.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, the CR, the Green Cemetery ADU bylaw, which does not have language yet. Citizens petition is in here as written, and they wrote the summary.
Okay.
And then all the CPAs. I did have a question here, Barney. Do you want me to keep these a sum of money, or do you want the exact dollar amounts?
This is the appropriation one?
And I did get your note about we should make the funds as flexible as possible.
Yeah.
But,
This is the appropriation one, right?
yes.
Uh,
This isn't the motion, it's just the
Oh, the,
warrant.
well,
So do you want
You're on-
the exact money
oh,
number
of
in
the
there?
CPA project being recommended. I think we put the exact
Okay.
amount in, yeah.
So I'll do that.
The only one we don't know yet firmly is the amenities building. But maybe if you want to leave it at 450, it sounds like though it's going to be lower.
That one should change to a sum of money.
No, I'm saying, I don't know that there's a dollar amount that's the accurate amount that
Right.
we don't have it yet, right? Brian was saying,
So in the warrant, we can just say we're gonna propose a sum of money, and then at the motion, you give the number.
okay. All right, that's fine.
The benefit of putting the number in is that people have more time to understand
Right,
it, but you
right.
don't need to in a warrant.
And since it's being
And
paid
where
out
you
of
have it,
CPA
they're
money.
putting it, and where you don't have it, they're just putting
Yeah.
some money.
Okay. That's it?
Can I go
Oh,
back?
Election, sorry. So we're taking out the fire debt exclusion, and we're going for a free cash model for design costs. So no ballot for the fire station, just the police station.
Yeah.
Just the police. Do we need to vote that or something? Was that,
Well, the vote, yeah,
So
Ashley.
when you vote on the whole, because we're not gonna do it tonight, because
Okay.
obviously there's a lot of changes I need to make, so the whole vote will include the election warrant.
Okay, and that's what Ashley was saying she needed, but we can wait and do that next meeting
yeah.
or at some point, okay.
The one item I just wanted to jump back to was the police station. We
Right.
talked about excluding the number from the police station. And I've just been thinking about that relative to the CPC and all this. Is that fair? I mean, do we want to let the
Give
town
people
know? Because if
some
people
idea.
they don't even know if there's maybe less informed voters, but if they have nothing in a warrant and they haven't paid attention to this,
We should try to put as much as we can.
I think that it's a disservice if we just said, oh, there's a police station, and they say, well, I thought we voted on that, and then they're shocked. you
And
know,
how
'cause
much
there's-
more we're
Well, they
asking
don't,
for.
there's
Right.
nothing.
Right.
I just think that we should put something, I know we don't wanna tie our hands too much if it's, but, you know,
In the explanatory, not the formal part, but the informal part.
The summary
You can say
part?
estimated to be about.
oh, you can. Oh,
Yeah,
well, I'm
we
asking-
In the
put it-
summary part.
The summary.
Whatever you want in summary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
right.
Oh,
we
so
should
then
put-
we'll just put it
yeah.
in the summary.
Yeah,
Okay,
I would
that's
put it in
fair.
the summary.
Then I'm on board.
Big
Okay.
discussion about this at FinCom, 30-year borrow on the police station? Is
What do
you're
we
asking.
normally do?
I had done 20 to keep it conservative, but
What did we do for Spalding? Do you remember? Does anybody know?
I mean, the school building.
Yeah.
Uh,
School buildings less.
20's probably good.
So that'll bring the number up,
I know, well,
What's in the current, what have you been modeling?
20.
20.
25.
FinCom wanted it 30.
Oh,
How
I'd
about
go with
25?
I mean,
We want to reduce our,
Yeah.
well, what?
Well, the
why don't
question,
we
to
take FinCom's
Kate's
recommendation on that?
point, when do we anticipate that will be? Now, to your point, I think the next iteration of this is also a substation of a regionalized police force.
Yeah, but I don't think you'll have to change it to be
No,
that.
so that's the
but,
question. So
yeah.
if we think this will last for 30,
I think it will.
then go 30. It should match, it should match its life.
I think we're gonna have so much, we're trying to make up for about 30 years of,
Neglect.
yeah, I mean, you're trying to do, if we're looking at a fire station
Yeah.
in a couple of years, I think we'll
Right.
wanna have a,
Right. I mean, we had this very discussion, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, where we had to build a grade school. And right on the back of that, we had to upgrade the high school, because
Right.
we built these sort of not very good buildings in the 60s, and it was time to redo them. And, you know, this is kind of like that. These two things are coming together, and then hopefully,
PW.
and, yeah, absolutely. So, anyway,
Well, we
I would
solved
say
that by
30.
building one that only lasts 5 years, and
Yeah,
the
no,
other
we
one
don't.
that's 30 years, and then they're spread apart.
Right, that's exactly what you mean. It's kinda
okay,
like a
so
one-year
we don't
term
have an
for you.
answer on the 20 or 30. That was
I
Ryan's
recommend,
question.
I agree with Scott. I would
I
go
agree with FinCom's recommendation.
FinCom,
30. I
I
would
would
go
go
with
with
30.
FinCom's
Right.
recommendation also.
That's why
The
we,
three of us say
that's why
30.
we appointed.
Yeah, I think for the police station, it's a safe bet. It's a safe bet.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
And the
And
police,
then in
and the
the
fire station will
summary,
be
it'll
5.
say something about the
5-year one.
additional costs, the range of the additional cost, right? In the
Yes.
summary for the
Yes.
police station.
You had said not to do that. You do want that in there.
In
In
the
the
In the
summary.
summary, not in
In
the
the-
Not
warrant?
the actual language of the
About
article.
4.2 million.
4.30.
No, what did we came up with a little bit higher.
I'm not sure I know the calculations.
We were at
We got to
669,
4.3.
and
We
then we
said-
went up from there because we took the contingency,
We took the
or not the
contingency.
revenue,
The
the
revenue
revenue,
out.
the revenue out, which was 80,000 or so,
Right,
right?
you're
Yeah,
at
so there's an additional
4.213, so
80K
you're
in there.
Yeah.
4.293 or
Because
something.
we did not take this
Rule of
out.
nines. 4.293. But you wouldn't say that in the summary. In the summary, you'd say
4.3.
around
4.3.
approximately 4.3. But in the actual warrant, when you're ready, you put the
Yeah.
so-and-so and 67 cents. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
so what is the, actually? could you-
What is the number, Ryan, that you wrote down?
4.3.
4.3.
For the total cost of
Yeah.
the building, and what's the additional we're gonna be asking for, though?
The difference between
3.55.
No, I know, but I think that's the
Well,
number that
it's
should also be explained in the
6, 7
summary.
something plus the 80 something.
Yeah.
So it's like 750,000.
Yeah.
I think the summary should just say more detail about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's approximately 4.3 as increase
I have a
of,
day
The
job.
average tax bill of X. Oh, increase from last year.
increase
Yeah.
from
Yeah,
last year.
yeah.
Okay, but that's, I didn't realize that didn't have to be in the warrant.
Might be
In the
too
article,
early.
in the
That is
article.
article.
Okay.
I think that's
It's
really
late, we're close. What else do we
That's
need?
it.
That's it?
Yay.
I thought there was-
We need to do
wasn't there
minutes.
a-
Yeah,
Oh, no, we have
I thought there
a
was a
important memo.
CR.
yeah, we do. We do.
or,
Memo.
Memo, demo memo.
No,
Conservation.
minutes memo.
that we have
Minutes
to accept?
memo.
Yep.
Yes, that's it for the town
Then
meeting.
we gotta do our
Okay.
minutes.
That's it for town meeting,
All right.
yeah.
What else do we have to do?
Not to embarrass myself.
This weekly
Yeah.
meeting is driving.
Okay.
All right, so we had,
Where am I here?
we could do warrants and minutes, and then
Right.
Well, there's also the CR thing.
if you can find that.
There's
here.
also the what? Oh, the
The
Davis CR,
Well,
or the other one?
No, it's a different one, the one
Oh,
on West Street.
Oh, from the trails.
I don't,
We're not
I
doing
don't
that
think we have to
today.
do that. I think that was just in this packet
Yeah, for
because we're gonna do it,
information.
we're gonna do it next week. But he
Yeah.
wanted,
Oh, that was in
I
the
had suggested that
information,
we
sorry.
wanna see that ahead of time so
Oh,
that you
yes.
can kind of
Okay, okay.
prepare if you had questions. The point is, some of these things shouldn't be the first time you see them.
Right.
Yeah.
When we vote on them.
Right. Now, my major question is, I don't want the town to be taking care, I want to make sure it's not the town that's taking care of this property.
Okay.
Well, we have a lot of open
It
space
isn't.
that costs
It
us a
isn't.
lot of money to
Right.
maintain, so.
Right. Or to not maintain.
To not maintain, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oscars.
Okay.
Okay.
Correspondence, warrants.
So what are we on?
We're going to the minutes, aren't we?
We are.
Okay.
So I just need a motion on the minutes.
Yeah, where is that?
They're on page 64 of the revised packet.
Okay.
Did everyone have a chance to read through them?
Nope.
Okay, wow.
Well, before we do that, then maybe
Wait,
Scott wants to...
64 is the bylaw, though, that's not, yeah.
Slowly.
Hold on. Scott, do you want to talk about your memo, or the memo that is in there?
Yeah, so if you go to the Agenda and Minutes Center and you look at minutes for a lot of key committees,
Oh, yeah.
there are no minutes. Not to call them out, FinCom, there haven't been minutes posted since July. Cemetery Task, and this came across in an email to Travis about one committee. I've had the issue with trying to catch up on like the Cemetery Task Force and FinCom, and just down the line, there's a lot of committees that aren't posting minutes, and in the past, Peggy would have occasionally sent out a reminder.
Right.
I don't know what the process is, but I thought it was appropriate approaching town meeting that maybe the select board just send out a memo to all committees and chairs just saying post your
I
minutes. So
think
that's
that's
what that memo is.
I think what you wrote is fine.
Great.
I do think we need to have this as a policy, a written policy, because I don't think it's, the law, the open meeting law says you just have to
Make them available, yeah.
approve your minutes
Right,
within
doesn't
3
say you have
meetings
to
or 30
post them.
days. It doesn't say anything about posting.
Right.
I think we have to have a
Should be our
policy.
Yeah.
I'll ask the TA, do we have a policy on that, do you know?
It's this, Barney.
If you-
You have it.
On posting minutes?
No, that's
We
the
have
thing
the
for
select board
Travis.
policy?
Oh, wait.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
For
for the
Scott,
town.
you mean.
Did the select board
Oh,
ever
you
enact
wrote
a
it
policy?
for him?
So the
Signed by
open meeting
Scott?
law.
Oh, I don't know.
I mean,
No,
signed
I
by
wrote a memo.
Travis?
Open meeting law is
With
not
just
like-
Travis
What
at the
is
bottom,
this?
yeah.
It says you have to take them,
Just-
and that you have
It's
to
page
approve
65
them
of the
within 30 days or 3 meetings, whichever is longest.
Oh,
But it
that's
doesn't say you
the
have to
TA
post them
bylaw
anywhere.
thing. Okay, wait, 65.
page
you said.
65.
And I think we should post them.
This is
Here it
still,
is, right here. if you want to see.
And of course, that would be our
Must
town
be
clerk.
numbered differently, thanks.
It's fine.
Okay.
And then that would give her authority then to hit, rag on these people.
Yeah, I mean, the select
If we
board
had-
only has authority over your boards and committees.
Yeah.
So you're
But if we
giving
have
this
a
to
town-
everybody or only our boards and committees?
Everybody. We can write a memo to everybody.
Yeah.
Well,
They don't have to
yeah,
follow it.
I'm
Yeah,
talking
But it's
policy.
just,
We're not, it's just a.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with this.
Yeah.
and I think maybe I will ask, or have the TA can ask Ashley to also follow up, because you'd said, and I remember Peggy used to follow up when I was on ZBA, and she'd be like, we gotta, even though she was doing the minutes, but.
Right.
she-
No,
we gotta
occasionally.
Do this.
Yeah.
But then it would, it wasn't a regular thing, but I think we need as a town,
Yeah.
especially as we get closer to like town meeting, to have these things available, because people
Right.
will be interested, people will go to the,
Yeah.
look at the minutes, and they've contacted, they've mentioned that, and they don't wanna have to request them of each committee individually.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so can you send that out to all boards and committees, or should I, or what do you want me to send it out?
Sure,
Yeah,
whoever,
I'll
out
send
of the
that.
main account.
Okay. I will
Well, why don't you
send,
just have Gretchen send it to the
Yeah.
list? Yeah, okay.
Makes sense.
all right.
Okay.
Great. So it was decided.
Minutes, right? We have to.
Yep, minutes, and then we're gonna. 64, page 64.
This is the
No,
March
it's
11th.
like 70-something.
I know, the numbering's different, but do you want me to go ahead and make the motion?
Yeah.
Sure.
All right, I move to approve the minutes of the March 11th, 2025 meeting and the March 25th, 2025 meeting as presented, unless somebody has a change. Now, Gretchen did say in her note to us that had to do these quickly, and so there may be some small grammatical errors, so I didn't
Second.
go over them.
I second the motion.
Well, my discussion would be, if you haven't gone over them, should we wait another week? even though Scott sent in the
Well,
memo.
well, no, I was gonna say, if other people have looked at them and they looked okay, then I'm fine with that.
I
I'm
haven't
just
looked
being
at
straightforward that I.
Me too, I
I'm not, you know, factual things, grammatical things I'm not too concerned about.
No, me
you
neither.
know, And typos, so.
I went through them and I thought, gosh, we've done a lot.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah,
there you
all
go.
right, well, that's
That's
good.
So
good.
you
That's
have a
good enough for
motion
me.
and a
Yeah.
second, so.
Second, was it seconded?
I already seconded
Okay.
it.
Yeah, I'm fine with that then.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so those are now approved. Our last thing is liaison reports. I don't think we have any, right? Anyone? Okay, and then for final thing, if there's anyone in the community who would like to make a comment, now is your time. Mr. Lavery.
Is anybody else there?
Not in the room, but you're there.
Yeah,
Christina's on.
Good work, guys. That's really was hard work getting through that remotely as well. No comments. I got to think about what kind of the conclusion or the MO you came up with tonight, and I'll try to write you with some thoughts. That's it.
Great.
Okay, thanks, John.
Great, thank you, John.
Christina, Eric, anyone? Mary Lynn, any
Sure.
questions? This is it.
Brian, any questions for you?
We're done.
Eric?
Just get your name up there.
I said thanks.
Oh, okay.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
All right, so I'm gonna end the comments section and, or community input, and I'll take a
Move
motion
we
to adjourn.
So moved.
10 o'clock,
All
excellent.
right,
Thank you.
yep,
Thank you all.
we're all done.
We're
Thank
all
you.
done.